All right, let's go ahead and get started with our meeting. Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Monroe County Council for Tuesday, October 24th. And I'd like to note for the record that Councilor Iverson, Councilor Deckard, Councilor Crossley, Councilor McKim, and Councilor Hawk and I are all in the Nat U Hill room. And Councilor Munson will be joining us shortly. She's just running a little bit late. The next item we have is the adoption of the agenda. Does anyone wish to add or remove an item from tonight's agenda? No? All right. Well, then we will move on to item number 3, which is public comment. Do we have any members of the public wishing to make comment on items that are not on our agenda, either online or here in the room? If you're online, you can raise your hand. All right, I see no one anxious to tell us anything. That's cool. We will move on. Department updates is number 4 on the agenda. Do we have any departments who wish to make an update at this time? We are blazing through this agenda. Bam. Council liaison updates. Any members of council wishing to give us an update? Yes.
I'll slow this down.
Okay, thank you for that. I was getting a little excited.
Yeah, I know. All right, I have 2 council updates for you, Madam President. The first is that yesterday in this room, we had Monroe County's inaugural Climate Vulnerabilities Workshop, where we enumerated 44 climate vulnerabilities unique to Monroe County, and those were generated by 17 local leaders. So we're really excited about that. Our McKinney Climate Fellow is hard at work creating a vulnerability matrix for review. And then our next meeting will be our solutions workshop. That'll be on December the 9th, which is a Friday, from 9 to 4 in this room. Most of those 17 local leaders will be present again, so we're very excited about that. The second update that I bring to you is from the climate group here in the county. We met on Thursday, and we talked about the Inflation Reduction Act out of the federal government. There's a lot of climate initiatives and potential funding, so we've asked some of our members to look into that. There's some good resources on the National Association of Counties as well, so that's the IRA. And then we also looked at a request for our involvement on Project 46, which would have greenhouse gas inventory along a 3-county area. And the general consensus was that there were a lot of questions still about that project. And so before that Environmental Commission makes a request of the Board of Commissioners, then they're going to ask some more questions about what does that look like, who's doing that work, what's the timeline, and particularly for this body, the importance is what's the cost.
Right, and we have already expressed support in this body.
That's right.
To the tune of $30,000, I believe, per year was what we were. I'm just trying to remember. You're nodding, so I'm going to say that might be about right.
That's right. And so you can go back, and I won't belabor my time here to get into some of the questions that the Environmental Commission had, but there were some interesting conversations about cost sharing and whether different communities were going to get involved and what that would mean to all of that. So all of our meetings are recorded, so you can go back and watch every single meeting.
It's riveting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Deckard.
Thank you very much. I'll be very quick. I just want to remind, as a liaison to the Monroe County Clerk, Nicole Brown, that the election board and the clerk are preparing hard for not only the municipal election, but the special, I don't want to say special, I always say something wrong when I do this report, the referendum vote, which will be for the residents of the Monroe County Community School Corporation District. And so essentially, if you reside within the Monroe County Community School Corporation District, the MCCSC has put a referendum question to you that you may vote on. Further, beyond that, there's been a lot of misinformation about who can vote, who cannot. If you're in that district, MCCSC, so if you see those school buses of a morning, or my kids would have went here, or did go here, or neighbors' kids go there, you're in the right place. You will be able to vote not only for in-person voting that we have downtown at the Napa building, which is, I'm trying to think of the address there, and I'm not going to get it right, but essentially the cross-section Walnut and 3rd, the Napa building across from the transit, you could vote there. You'll also be able to vote at your polling place, and the Monroe County Clerk has posted the polling places on her website. And let me tell you the trend-decorated way to figure out what that website is, the simple way. Look up Monroe County voters and look for that in your Bing, your Google search, whatever. Click on the link that is Monroe County Government. You'll see all sorts of information about elections, past results, how to contact the clerk, the election board, and specifically you'll see those locations for this municipal general election. So don't let it being a city election fool you. If you're in the MCSC district, regardless of how you feel about that referendum, the school board, the MCCSC has asked you, they should have named that maybe a little different back in the day. They've asked you for your opinion to vote, so please do so. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other updates from council members? Let the record show that Councilor Munson has arrived. Welcome. All right, if there are no more liaison updates, we will move to item number 6 from our legal department.
Council, I move to approve the request to approve ordinance 2023-35, an ordinance authorizing appropriations for general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $3,100,000 for projects which include but are not limited to: number 1, various buildings and office space improvements, including furniture, carpeting, tile, office space, system renovations, new office systems, restroom improvements, computer improvements, and audio-video equipment improvements. Number 2, parking garage improvements, including security and gate systems. Number 3, karst trail extension. Number 4, medical equipment for the sheriff's vehicles. Number 5, airport improvements. And number 6, karst field turf and all related improvements and the incidental expenses in connection with these projects.
Second.
Thank you, and welcome, Mr. Cockrell.
Yes, and in the spirit of keeping things speedy, we had a nice conversation about this at last month's work session. We actually approved the bond ordinance so we could get things going. We did not have this at that time because we had to meet some advertising deadlines. So I think you guys have all been well educated on the bond as well as the project. So this is just kind of the final step that is necessary before we can sell the bonds. I would expect that we would have the bids prior to Thanksgiving and we would receive the funding sometime early December. That's traditionally how that's flowed.
Are there any questions from council on this item? Yes, Councilor Hawk.
Not a question, but clarification of some of the discussion from last week. So I wanted to make sure that I had clarified my feelings about this. I approve making sure that we put something in there in our tax rates, our appropriations, because if we didn't do that, then we would not have been able to capture that amount that we have for the operating balance. If they let us do it only if we advertise it when we advertise the others. However, if we didn't advertise it at all and went ahead and passed something before and got it all done before the end of the year, they would still give us the levy and they would adjust all the levy, but we wouldn't get that operating, which we of course want to get. So I have no objection to it being done. My objection was that because the council had not officially agreed, but pretty much had come out to say we all supported it, the 3.1. And that was my concern, that our legal department or whoever should have made sure that the appropriate numbers were in there. Because if for some reason between now and whenever, someone might have said, until it's done, you know, we don't know, could have changed it to 4.1, we would have then been able to take it to 4.1, which is, that was the amount that was entered in there for appropriations, was the amount that would have been 4.1 plus your other cost associated. So that's the reason. It isn't like it's a done deal till it's a done deal. And I appreciate you at least listening and understanding my concern. And I continue to support this bond. Surprise, but I do.
That's great. And for anybody wondering what that's all referring to, it's our last meeting's discussion where we were finalizing our budgets. Again, you can always go back to CATS and watch it. Did you have something, Councilor?
I was just going to add to the emphasis that I put on that $3,100,000 on that. That was clearly what we said. We said last time we would dog ear that, make a note of that, and here we've had public discussion notarizing that again. This is a good bond. There are good things in here, and I am excited to see some of these things taking hold.
Any other comments or questions? Councilor Munson.
I was agreeing with Councilor Hawk at the last meeting that it is confusing to the public to see different numbers like 5 million versus the 3.1 we talked about. And I'm going to hope that next year we can schedule our deliberations over bonds so that we can get this set out where the public can better understand it and have the information.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that next year we'll have it set at the right requested amount, even regardless of where we are. Any other questions? Okay. In that case, could we have, is there any public comment, before I forget, on the bond approval? Okay, I see no comment requests, so could we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Yes, I didn't. You're awfully quiet over there.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
The next item is from our prosecutor's office, and it was tabled from October 10th, and I'd like to propose that we table this item to the November 14th regular session.
Move we continue this item to the November 14th regular session.
Second.
Moving along. Are there any questions about this? We're simply just waiting on the paperwork to come through. Seeing none, we will have it tabled, and I think we can just do a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it unanimously. Moving on to number 8 from our health department.
Council, I move to approve the Health Department's Behavioral Health and Wellness job description and to simultaneously amend the 2024 salary ordinance in Fund 1161-0000, Local Public Health Services, adding account line 10180, Behavioral Health and Wellness Coordinator, Pat C., 35 hours, non-exempt.
Second.
Thank you, and welcome, Ms. Kelly.
Welcome, good evening. So just to provide a little bit of an overview, this is a request for a new position. This position will fulfill many of the core service requirements that are going to be required for health departments that opt in to Health First Indiana. So just to provide a brief overview of some of those services, navigation and referral services, programming to address behavioral health, mental health, programming for chronic disease, infectious disease. So lots going on within this job, and we are hoping that we could get this added to our department.
Thank you. Are there questions from council? Okay, we'll start with Councilor Iverson.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. Just as a reminder to council, this was sent to Wagner, Irwin, Sheely, or WIS for their review. They factored the position at 405 PAT factor points, and therefore, if the position is approved, it is recommended that the position be classified at PAT C, non-exempt. I will also note that this was voted on by PAC to come to council. And the last thing I'll note is that one of my favorite things about human resources here at the county is the organizational charts. And there's one on page 18 of our packet tonight, and that's really helpful to see where this position fits into the broader scheme of things.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? When would this position, would this position be starting with just when you're gonna advertise immediately and move forward now? Is that the idea?
Soon, hopefully advertise before the end of the year, but still not looking to probably fulfill this position until maybe around April, beginning of next year. I just want to make sure that I really have a concrete game plan with getting this position onboarded, that we have good strategies in place for the programming and the services that this position is going to be covering. So I just want to make sure that I'm not rushing it too much, but still about 5 months away.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Iverson.
Yes, Ms. Kelly, thank you for being here. I note that this would be a direct report to you. That's correct, right?
That is correct. And when I talked with Ms. Shell, we kind of thought that maybe it would be a good idea to give it a year, kind of see where it might best fall within the broader scheme of the health department, and then kind of be able to make a decision if necessary after that point. I will say that I am beginning to get a lot of direct report kind of added to me, so that's something that's also going to have to be taken into consideration at some point, just because we have so much going on.
Yeah, Ms. Kelly, you foresaw where I was going with this line of questioning. There is a lot of direct reports on one person. I know you to be very capable and experienced, so I'm not worried. But at the same time, that's a lot of people reporting to one person.
It is, and then in addition with our public health nursing, and then with Futures Family Planning Clinic, which is again just why I'm really hoping and excited to get this position. But I want to make sure that things are not being rushed. Again, just making sure that time is being taken to have good plans in place so that we can make it as successful as possible.
That's our hope as well, I would say. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? All right, I see none. Is there any public comment on the new position for Health Department? Seeing none, could we please have a roll call vote?
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes?
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That brings us to item number 9 on the agenda with our Youth Services Bureau.
Council, I move to approve the Youth Service Bureau's, pardon me, I'm going to restate that. Move to approve the Youth Services Bureau's request to update the job description of the data specialist and to simultaneously amend the 2023 and 2024 salary ordinances in Fund 11140166, Lit Special Purpose YSB account line 11126 data specialist to a PAT B 35 hours non-exempt with an effective date of October 22nd, 2023.
Second.
And we have Vanessa Schmidt with us. Welcome.
Hi, good evening, councils. So yes, I'm here to request that we, like you said, approve the job description and amend the 2023 and 2024 salary ordinance. This position was new to us in the summer of 2022. We took about a year to kind of look at what the scope was and how that person was spending their time. We had a WIS review. They recommended that it move from a Pat A to a Pat B. And then in the recent PAC meeting, they allowed us to move that to council.
Good. Great. Counselor Iverson.
I will say nothing further. Everything that you said was correct, but I will say that on page 25 of our packet, there's an organizational chart. It's helpful to see.
Those are pretty fun.
Yeah, they're fun.
Oh, come on. You think they're cool too. Are there any other comments or questions? Yes.
One of the things, as Counselor Iverson talks about the organizational chart, a thing I often like to point out on this, and I know the PAC process can be cumbersome and things can be difficult, but good government starts when we have these things documented. There was an era and a time in our state when ghost employment, people being elected and assigning their friends to jobs and never coming into a courthouse, those things happen. Jobs and the salary for the jobs were given to somebody's best friend and all those things. And the person that carried my best yard signs would be the person that would prevail. I'm using a hypothetical me in that example. When we have job descriptions, when we have organizational charts, when we understand on this end and everyone understands on that end, it makes it so that one person being in that role is not the retainer of that. And it's important. It's a real pain, but it is necessary for that process. So as we all go through that pain, let's take aspirin together and try not to look too longingly back at some of those good old days that were not so good because some things happened, money was abused, and the taxpayers get shorted in that effort. So good government starts with some of these things that are a little bit painful at times. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments or questions on this position? Yes.
Just as a response to Councilmember Deckard, I think that also begins right at the top of every department head, making sure that they are promptly at their desk at the appointed time, and that they make sure that their employees and the public know that they are working to do exactly the people's business. So I think that's important. People want to know that.
You know we were going to get a civics lesson around your position, huh?
Great commentary.
No, it's just...
We're not even talking about
That's
you
okay.
folks.
I know.
I'm glad we followed the process. Yeah.
Other comments or questions on this item? Is there any public comment on the Youth Services Bureau job description change? Is that what it is? Yes, job description update. I do not see any, so if we could please have a roll call vote, that would be great.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you,
Thank
counselors.
you. Thank you.
Madam President, I had inquired at the DLGF about the latest distribution, which were, their numbers were supposed to get that somewhere near the beginning of October, and that had not been sent out. It will be coming out in their next newsletter. They did send me a copy of it, and I mentioned that because, of course, it is adjusted for the Youth Services Bureau. So I didn't study it, but I think that is what we should see. So I just want to bring that to your attention, and I will send it out to everyone, hopefully tomorrow. It just have been busy.
Okay, great. Thank you. We are now at item number 10 with our Highway Department.
Council, I move to open for discussion and approval of the Highway Department's request to update the job descriptions of the Highway Superintendent and Highway Director, and to amend the job descriptions of the Bridge Crew Supervisor, Communications Manager, and MS4 Coordinator to report to the Highway Superintendent, and amend the job description of the Stormwater Equipment Operator to report to the Stormwater Crew Foreman, and to simultaneously amend the 2023 and 2024 salary ordinances in Fund 1176-0000 Motor Vehicle Highway account line 15809 Highway Superintendent to an EXE B 40 hours exempt and account line 15810 Highway Director to an SO 40 hours exempt, both with an effective date of October 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Ridge.
Good evening. Basically, we kind of looked at our organizational chart and was just trying to update some things and found some discrepancies in there from the 2020, I believe it was, when they did all the reviews for the whole county, just a couple things that we had missed. So this is actually correcting that. One of the biggest things we found was a supervisory position being classified as the same position, which typically isn't allowed in our policy, doesn't follow our policy. So the director position used to be an SO position. So in talking with Molly and Kim Shell, the recommendation was, and I went through my liaisons, to move the director position back to the SO category, no change in salaries, and then that enables the superintendent to be moved to the EXEB category, and that eliminates that structural issue that existed in the department the last couple of years. And the other positions we just noticed were listed in the job description as reporting to the wrong person. So that was the tear down of cleanup effect that we went through all the positions and tried to correct them all at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Counselor Iverson.
The organizational chart in which we worked on closely together is on page 51 of tonight's packet. But it is, in all seriousness, it was a great catch. This is a great example of department heads and PAC and county legal and county council, staff just all working together to say, hey, we caught something, let's fix it. We've done it pretty quickly, and I think it's worked out really nicely here.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments on this one? So to be clear, I wanted, no changes are needed or review by WIS for these activities because they align with what WIS already knows about, that's just more clerical and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I believe that was discussed also at the PAC, and I don't want to speak for the PAC, but I believe Kim said that she would be sending these changes so WIS can update their records, but did not think that it needed any type of review for what we were doing.
Okay. Comment? Question?
I support it.
All right. Is there any public comment on the highway item? Okay, seeing none, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes?
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Hawk?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. We're now at item 11 from our surveyor's office.
I have an
Oh, she's
item.
got one
Oh,
more. She's got
there's
a
a
B.
We're now still on item 10.
She can't leave that quick.
Sorry.
Council, I move to approve the Highway Department's request to update the job description of the Highway Administrative Assistant and to simultaneously amend the 2023 and 2024 salary ordinances in Fund 1176-0000 Motor Vehicle Highway account line 11002 Administrative Assistant to a Comet D 40 hours non-exempt with an effective date of October 22nd, 2023.
Second.
And this has already been to WIS. Is that correct?
Correct. We followed the proper procedures that's set in the personnel policy, completed the paperwork. It was all sent to WIS, and as their recommendation was moving it to a comment D with the changes in the job description. I know in the past we kind of let our job descriptions get outdated, so we're trying to keep up with that. And we knew we had taken on some new duties to stay in line with our new grant funds and our reporting mechanisms for what the auditor's office has to report at the end of the year for gap reporting.
All right. Are there any questions or comments from council? I see none. Are there any public commenters? I see none there. Could we have a roll call vote, please?
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Munson,
Yes.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Yes.
Madam President,
Uh-huh.
just wanted to let you know the conversation I had with Ms. Ridge a few minutes ago. You know, I serve on the Indiana County Council Association group, and so I received a message saying that Rick Ring, who's over our group, is going to be taking the comments from the different counties and the problems that the highway departments might have so that he can take it to the higher group that's working on changes. And so one of the things you mentioned, which was really problem for you, do you want to share that or just share that with, send it out to us or however you'd like to do?
Yeah, I'm happy to share moving forward. As you know, I think it was in 2018, our 1176 motor vehicle highway was split across the state into restricted funds for 1173 on how we spend funding in the highway department. We can't get good clarification in our engineer and supervisor organizations. Counties are doing it differently. Some are splitting their 1176 into and actually submitting 2 budgets at each year. Some are not. It's really hard to get. It would be nice if we all had the same guidance of what State Board of Accounts prefers. We have, it just goes back and forth of what we should be doing. So I think in the future, I think you'll see that our 1176 will have to be split into 2 funds, and then we'll have an 1176 and 1173 restricted, because half the funds that we take monthly that's distributed from the state is already split in half, and then you have to justify where you're spending those funds on the restricted activities that you're allowed to do with the 1173, and then anything else is out of the 1176. So we've been trying to get that nailed down for the future. But we just don't seem to get a firm answer across the state of how county highways should be doing that. And I don't know if that comes from a council level, if it comes from an auditor's level. I've sat in a lot of meetings with auditors across that attend our association and talk to the highway departments. And again, it's all over the place. It's every different counties are just doing it differently. So yeah, that I would be interested in trying to get that streamlined. So when you have new highway superintendents or directors or commissioners or council come on board or auditors, everybody's doing the same thing. But I'm not sure that it's been put in black and white of how we should be doing it since 2018.
Right. I know I also met with the Ellisville Town Clerk, Sandy Hash, and we discussed the problems that she was having as well. So I'm just glad that we have a group that intends to make our voices heard at the state level and to let people know where there's a problem. So thanks, and if you'll just send me something, I'll forward on to Rick.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Have we had our auditor's office contact the State Board of Accounts to ask about this?
I can't answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not the auditor.
I've
but
thrown it out there in some emails and things. I'm not sure.
Seems like that would be a very straightforward way to go about doing that. I would suggest maybe we do that.
I think what this group just wants to say, and of course, he probably had no idea that was your response. I think it's probably more how they can get more money to fix the potholes, you know. But when I asked, that was what she said was her concern. So I'm not trying to step over any other.
Oh, no, yeah, but
department.
it's a good,
Yeah, and
it's a good
great.
question,
If
and
it comes from the auditors, then just let us know how county set it up and move forward by splitting those out correctly.
right,
Yeah.
so let's get the auditors, they're all at a conference, so they're
I was
not
going
here
to say
right
the
now.
timing seems just about right. And there's a conference of auditors right now.
This is true, maybe they
Just
can,
text the auditor and say, raise your hand right now and ask.
exactly, it's all good. Let's let them have their conference, but yeah, let's check into that.
Yeah.
And get guidance for at least Monroe County, because this might take a while.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we are at item 11.
Council, I move to approve the surveyor's request to update the job description of the survey technician and to simultaneously amend the 2023 and 2024 salary ordinances in Fund 1000-0006, General Fund Surveyor, account line 12009, survey technician, to a Pat B, 40 hours non-exempt with an effective date of October 22nd, 2023.
Second.
Nice, thank you.
Welcome.
I think with all those account numbers, I actually had enough time to get my name down before it was
That's why we do
my
a
turn to
script.
speak. So that's what happens with hyphen last name. Awesome. I have some bullet points. I whittled them down while we were waiting. Also, I want to just mention our survey technician, Jason George is in the audience just in case he's needed. I doubt it. So, but I think it's just good experience to come here occasionally and see how this works.
Well, have him come on up. Come on up.
Sorry, that's my
I
fault.
mean, if you came all the way
Yeah.
to the room, you might as well sit up
And
here
you
at the
can-
table.
And he does help me with a lot of administrative functions at the office. So this is
Welcome.
good exposure, good experience. Would you like to say hi to the council?
Hello.
Hello.
If you want. This job was created in 2018 and funded in 2020. The job description was revised for clarity, eliminating vague language and expanding the duties, such as I just referred to, some administrative functions. The job revision was submitted to PAC, then went to WISC, and then WISC gave a recommendation. We're pretty comfortable with the recommendation. They recommended it at a PAT B, which is kind of what I was anticipating. We are also asking for 40-hour work week to give the technician more time for administrative duties. A couple additional points is this position is split 50-50 with the county general, so the financial impact will only be half of what you see on the statement. Also, we have adequate funds to cover it for the remainder of this year, and with discussion with Michelle, we budgeted it for 2024, so everything's in place.
Good.
And I'm opening up to any questions.
Sure. Councilor Kim.
Actually, the paperwork we have shows it as a 75-25 split. Is it 75-25 or is it 50?
No. This is 50-50. The PS is 75-25.
Okay.
And then I'm a 75-25. I got to keep it all straight. We have 3 split positions in the
that's good.
surveyor's office.
Thank you.
Great. Other questions or comments from council? All right. I don't have any questions. Was it an exciting discussion?
It was an exciting discussion. You can tell from tonight's agenda that we've been busy.
Yeah.
But yeah, we heard this. We've had some great conversations, and the WIS came back with a good recommendation that we forwarded on to all of you. The org chart's on page 61 of tonight's packet.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions? No? Any public comment on this item from the surveyor's office? Then let's go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Counselor Deckard,
Yes.
Counselor Iverson,
Yes.
Counselor Hawk,
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz,
Yes.
Counselor Crossley,
Yes.
Counselor McKim,
Yes.
Counselor Munson.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you so much. I do want to just take one moment and really commend Jason with the work and commitment he has and his professionalism that he brought to the office. He's been here for about 2.5 years and has done an amazing job. So thank you for your support tonight.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Our next item, number 12, is from the Board of Commissioners and Amethyst House.
Council, I move to open for discussion a request from the commissioners regarding opioid restricted funds.
Thank you.
Second.
Hey.
Welcome.
Yeah. Hi there. This is Mr. DeLong
Yes. Hello,
With-
everybody.
with Amethyst House. And I was going to introduce them and step back, but thanks, Peter. Amethyst reached out to the Board of Commissioners earlier this year.
Can you turn the mic? I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
there's only one
Yeah,
for
no,
you.
we're good. I'll get closer. So they had reached out earlier this year for the same grant that the Board of Commissioners had spoken to you guys about, the opioid settlement matching grant from the state of Indiana. And they had made a request for some funding. Commissioners had indicated that they were supportive of that request. And we wanted to kind of get this ball rolling. And so we actually submitted this agenda item months ago, wasn't it? May 2nd. And because of no, that was when you applied. Wasn't that when you applied for this? Yes. Yeah. I think we actually submitted this for your agenda like in September, but all the budget hearings get into play.
September was a little bit of a blur.
Kind of a little crazy, yeah. So anyway, what was recommended to us was that for them to give a presentation as to what it is that they're wanting to do with those particular funds. And I believe we had requested an appropriation just so that at least it was there in the event that you wanted to do that. But I do know that there are some questions as to how all we're going to, the various projects. I do have some funding information for you if you want that. But I would like to hand this over to Mr. Delaney, and I believe you've shared slides.
Yeah, Corey has slides.
Great.
Hey, Corey. And as he's getting the slides, I presented a month ago, so I'm going to have some slides, and most of it will be different than a month ago, so bear with us on that. Yes, I'm the executive director of Amethyst House. My name's Mark DeLong, and I'm here with Carmen, who's one of our therapists at our outpatient office. She's going to share a little bit when I'm finished. And our request basically is a proposal. The second slide would be good. Proposal would be, there's 3 parts to that. One is for $30,000 for a part-time physician. Amethyst House has been providing residential treatment for a number of years now, and we've always wanted to have a physician on board to help us out. We have one who has been consulting with us, but we are really wanting to expand his role, and I'll get into that in a second. The second item is for a full-time master's level clinician for our outpatient office that would work with both our residential and our outpatient office. And the third thing is we've been, 3 therapists have been trained in EMDR recently. It's part of our trauma-informed care. Carmen's going to explain what that is in a minute. And so we're asking for $3,000 so 2 more therapists can be trained in that. So, okay. And just to, basically, that's our mission. Amethyst House mission is to provide a foundation for recovery by partnering with individuals, families, and communities impacted by substance use disorders, offering a high-quality residential and outpatient treatment service and guidance for healthy living. Okay. And just a history, Amethyst has been in the Bloomington community since 1980. This is basically 43 years, and we really love the Bloomington community, and we feel like the community has embraced what we do. We have a lot of, between our neighbors in our residential settings and just community partners, we really appreciate being in Bloomington. And as far as the job I have, I would not, this is the county I would want to work at in Indiana. It'd be my number one choice, so I'm very grateful I'm here. We've been doing it since then. In the 90s, we opened a women's program on campus, and then we have been for about 23 years now. We've been on Madison and 2nd Street, our women's program. A few years ago, we became an ASAM 3.1 residential treatment program. We had been sober living part of that. Now we're more of a low intensity residential treatment program. So we get HIP Medicaid, and that's worked out really well. Since then, we've hired an outreach admissions coordinator, goes into jails, treatment centers. We're able to work on having seamless transitions from one program to another. And we started accepting medication-assisted treatment in 2019, so the last 4 years. And we just, in the last year, we began providing EMDR, and we started a MRT program at the suggestion of Community Corrections here. So, and then now we're looking as far as expanding to having a part-time physician. And we put in the proposal in May, so we have hired a 4th therapist for this quarter, being this fiscal year started in July. So, and that's what we're asking for, that person's salary. So, okay. We maintain 2 residential treatment centers. All of our programs are within a few blocks of this courthouse. Our outpatient program is 11th and Walnut. If you're ever driving up there, you see a purple sign up there. We're located there. But our houses are really, we really appreciate our houses, and we really work hard to be good neighbors in the community. And this town is a good town to get grants for home improvements and repairs. So we really try to keep our programs up. When we switch to HIP Medicaid residential, we have to staff 24/7. That's been a big hit on our payroll, but we've been managed to do that. We have residential staff, admission coordinator, we have 4 case managers, and we have 10 part-time technicians to help us out at the house for overnights and so on. Plus, we have our therapists at outpatient. So our residential folks go to outpatient for treatment. For a lot of their treatment, they'll come to the outpatient office. Okay. Just to explain the 3 components of this request is the physician role. The person we have has a significant background in addiction treatment. He's a really cool guy. He's helped us a lot in consultation. He is certified buprenorphine prescriber, Suboxone prescriber. He also is somebody we see in an expanded role can network with other MAT providers. We provide MAT, but we're not prescribing at this time. So a lot of times it's difficult to connect with there's several MAT providers, so we kind of have our favorites that we utilize. But with a physician, we can really improve on as far as our connecting with them. And some issues we run into, somebody will come from another program, have 1 or 2 days of prescriptions, and we're kind of running around trying to figure out how to get them what they need in 48 hours or whatever. So having a physician will really help deal with a lot of those kind of crisis situations. And health screenings, and he would be someone who could oversee our MAT program. Okay. And the master's level therapist, we look at that person as being able to add assessments. We get a lot of folks that want help with us, and it's sometimes hard to get the assessments scheduled in timely manners. Having another therapist really helps us with assessments. We'll have a caseload. Residential clients and outpatient clients would be trained in EMDR, be a group facilitator, and do individual and family therapy. So. And the 2 trainings they're $1,500 per training. They're typically week-long trainings. They're pretty extensive. The trainings also include 5 or 10 follow-up consultation sessions that will go on for the next few months after that. So, and this will help us expand our EMDR services by over 50%. So, and my final slide is that we looked at this expansion of treatment programs and trauma-informed care will increase clients served by 10%, increase program revenue by 10 to 15% this year. It's going to increase the EMDR availability, increase assessment availability, address referral needs for that to make those transitions as seamless as possible. Health screenings increase, and also we're looking to the role of the physician is also helping with co-occurring services. We're trying to figure out what that role will be, but potentially be able to prescribe psychotropics occasionally. So, and the additional therapist again is at our outpatient office. And so far since July, we've increased in the first quarter 7% of clients we're serving at this point. So, trim your seats.
Hello. Thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I've been at Amethyst House almost 2 years. I was so blessed to be able to go and get trained in EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, which I will explain to you guys if you don't know what that is. I've been a social worker 15 years doing one-on-one therapy and group therapy with folks with mental health issues and substance abuse, and EMDR has been across the board the most helpful thing I've ever learned. Wow. It's incredible. So to be able to be trained in that is, you know, it's a blessing, and Mark was able to do that for me and some other therapists so far. Just a little bit about our outpatient program, a little more nuanced, is that our clients, our residential clients and our outpatient clients have access to an individual therapist, group therapy, specialized, whether it's a cognitive behavioral therapy group separated by genders, or IOP, intensive outpatient group, which is kind of the standard for a lot of our folks that have different referring agencies like Department of Child Services or parole or probation. That's the treatment that that's usually asked of them, and we provide that. We have 3 different time slots that people can choose from depending on what their own schedule is with work or childcare and that kind of stuff. So we're really proud to be able to offer those different times. We get referrals from all kinds of places. We work closely with Positive Link here in town, New Leaf, New Life, South Central Community Action Program, Monroe County Health Department, Centerstone, Courage to Change, IU, IUBH, DCS, inpatient rehabs, counseling centers like New Outlook, private physicians, Indiana Recovery Alliance, Community Corrections, United Way, Healthy Families Indiana, and then just last week we met with the folks from Iraq, which was really cool, that program that they're thinking about coordinating with people that are currently incarcerated a month before they are released, and following them a month after, and working with us directly to be able to make sure that people are caught when they get out and they have a place to land, and they're not flailing and trying to figure it all out on their own, which was such a great meeting, and I'm very excited about that program. But so we're always open to those kind of community connections that we make here. It's really cool for me. I'm from New York City, so this is not a thing. No one talks in New York City. You just, but here, like I pick up, like I know the parole officers. I know, you know, different people just because we live in Bloomington together, and it's really a very cool thing. And the clients know us from the community and know the providers from the community, and it's a nice place, I think, to recover. Let me see what else. So we have 4 master's level clinicians right now. That, in my experience, is rare when you have a primarily Medicaid funded program to have experienced clinicians that work there as well. And so we're able to bring a level of expertise that is really special, it's really needed, and our folks really deserve it, no matter how much they make or don't make. So I'm really proud to be able to do that too. Let's see. We really operate from this trauma-informed care model, which is something that gets thrown around, kind of lingo, but I wanted to talk about that just a little teeny bit because it is important, but it does take some intention. So trauma-informed care, it just acknowledges that healthcare organizations and care teams need to have a complete picture of the whole, the patient or the client's whole situation, right? So we do a biopsychosocial assessment with everyone that comes in. So that just takes into account where they come from, you know, their ideas of where they want to be, health issues, psychiatric issues, you know, socioeconomic issues. We're looking at the whole picture for this human being to learn and see what services they might need or benefit from with their input as well. That's kind of a really small, short way to describe it, but it's really, the 5 guiding principles are safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment, which seems kind of obvious. Like, of course we would do those things, but to work in a trauma-informed care model, to make those things a priority and bring them to our policies and procedures and our staff trainings and so every layer of what we do, it's really important for us to be able to do that. Let's see. Oh, we lost the slides. I got them all right here, it's fine. Okay, a long time ago, okay. So EMDR, I'm not gonna try not to geek out too much about this. And I brought some brochures if you guys want to read more extensively about it. Okay, so in layman's terms, because that's how I understand it, it is evidence-based, okay? It's a mental health treatment technique, and this method involves moving your eyes in a specific way while you process traumatic memories. EMDR's goal is to help you heal from trauma and other distressing life experiences. Basically, when we sleep at night during REM cycle of sleep, our eyes go back and forth. It's a natural process that our bodies do every single day to process the day's information. It goes from our frontal cortex to the other part of our brain, which we have memories, right? When you have trauma, sometimes it gets stuck up here. So you see everything through the lens of this trauma. And we can, in 20 minutes, I've done it, I've seen it, it's incredible, kickstart that processing by asking the client to watch my finger go back and forth while we specifically focus on a trauma event or a negative self-image, anything like that. And it helps them process, and they see results sometimes that same day. It's incredible. So we are, and you have to be trained to do that. It was a week-long training, and so that's something that we focus on. Other things that we do, evidence-based procedures that we do in our individual therapy and group therapy is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a type of talk therapy, and it's a common treatment for a wide range of mental health problems, anxiety, depression, and it teaches you coping skills for dealing with different problems. It focuses on how your thoughts, beliefs, and attitudes affect your feelings and actions. And that's been around for a long time. We also do Seeking Safety, which is a present-focused therapy that helps clients attain safety from trauma, including PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and substance abuse by emphasizing coping skills, grounding techniques, and education. We use motivational interviewing. Let's see. And we have many different assessments that are evidence-based. 2 is part of the assessment process to find out what level of care people would be most suitable for. So ASAM criteria, the ANSA, these are all well documented to be able to help us understand what level of care that they need. And that is all obviously documented. I lost my way. I got geeked out a little bit. Any questions?
You have MRT on there too. Could you just briefly tell us what MRT is?
Yes. So MRT it's evidence-based. It's been around for a while, and we didn't have it as a service at Amethyst House until a year ago, maybe. We spoke to our probation officers, and that's something that they wanted for their clients to receive this. And
it stands for moral recognition. therapy.
Yes, and I have a blurb on it, and I don't know where that is. It's essentially helping our clients look at the choices that they've made and take responsibility for them. So it almost, it helps them see no matter what the circumstance is, what can I control out of it? I can control my actions, my thoughts, and my behavior, and become empowered through that. Is the best way I can describe it.
That really intrigues me, and I like the way that you put that. Do you find that most of the folks that you're encountering, that you serve, that you've known all these years, do not feel empowered on their own actions, feelings, results? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, and I appreciate the question too, because that is the number one thing, that the barrier between somebody being able to be open to treatment, AKA open to what? Change, right? Why am I gonna change if I don't have any power in anything? I'm being told I have to come here, I have to do these things, I don't understand it. Our clients are less willing to be open to new ideas, right? So yeah, the name of the game is empowering them. How do we do that? That's trauma-informed care from the minute they pick up the phone to call for an assessment, to get into Amethyst House. How the person on the other end of the phone picks it up and greets them and talks with them and answers their questions, anticipates possible things, that meets them where they're at as a human being, right? So, and as they come in, that's why it's the very collaborative part of the trauma-informed care. Collaborative. You're not coming in, I'm not telling you about you, what you need. Here's what, we're gonna have a conversation about it, and I'm gonna find every opportunity I can to open that up so they can see they do have choice, and they have an opportunity, right? It's not all these things are happening to me, these are all opportunities.
There's just a comment. I think a lot about everything going on in this community any given day. And what you are saying resonates a lot with me. The council had to hear it last week. I've been sober since 2007, but what you've said, it occurs to me in this community, we have a lot of need to get people to an empowered action result, period.
Yes.
And that seems, I don't know anything well about this other than my own experience. There seems to be a magical, the secret sauce in some of that you're talking about, and I think we got to think hard on that.
I know with what I speak also. So I think it also is worth mentioning that we have a significant number of staff members that are in recovery, and also to find master's level staff members in recovery is rarer than you would think.
Yeah.
And so to be able to be that at Amethyst House and have some colleagues that are also in recovery, clients see me at AA meetings, and so it's a really important aspect. You want to sit at the table with people that are represented with what we're talking about. So I appreciate your question.
And I'd like to add that no one comes into treatment because they want to come. Self-referrals, people that are motivated day one don't really exist. I usually look, I'm like, I know you don't want to be here, I'm just glad you're here. And then we look for self-motivation about 6 to 8 weeks in. Then all of a sudden the person's empowered, they're saying, hey, I'm going to go to a couple extra meetings this week. But we don't see that in the beginning. And we're not really looking for self-motivation day one. We're looking for it down the road. It's sort of like we go from the client thinks in terms of I have to be here to I get to be here, and then they're scared to leave at 3 months. They're like, I don't want to leave here right now, kind of thing. But there is something, it's kind of spiritual that happens from that point to where the person starts doing things for themselves, gaining some confidence. They're going, maybe I can do this, because they have zero confidence coming in that they can stay clean and sober. Thank you. So, yeah.
Councilor Iverson?
Thank you for coming back. I want to get to the fiscal side of this a little bit before we get too far down here. And you came and spoke last at the JFAC meeting. That was dedicated to treatment. It was 3.5 hours long. It was a slog. but there was so much to hear. And I think that's one of the things why this meets the criteria for me about why we would invest. Because what we heard over and over again from our community, from folks in the county was, county should not be investing in trying to reinvent the wheel. We have community organizations like Amethyst House that are already doing this. They've been doing it for a while. They know what they're doing. So I think your history and highlights slide really highlighted that, the ASAM criteria, the way that we're trying to think about mapping things, the way that we're trying to think about MAT in the community, right? All that matters. My question is for the part-time position and the full-time clinician. This funding from a grant would pay for maybe the first year. What then?
I think what we spoke to, if we are able to grow our outpatient, we're going to see an increase in 10 to 15% in revenue from that. And we'll just continue to build off of grants through DMHA. We had a grant end, a 4-year grant. They've replaced it with the state. They've replaced it for a year with about half the money they had before. Next year, there'll be other grants that are, we've been doing this for 43 years. And being in healthcare, if I can forecast 18 months out, I'm lucky. Mm-hmm. It's just the way it is. But I think this is the way for us to go to grow outpatient and continue to increase the amount of people we serve. Will also increase revenue.
Sure. I mean, these are really vital services. Yeah. I mean, my fear would be that we would fund this for a year and then it would disappear from our community. Okay. But I mean, obviously, you're the expert in grant writing, so yeah, good luck.
So, thank you, Peter.
Yes, go ahead. Thank you for your presentation. Again, we heard you at JFAC, but tonight, listening to the EMDR presentation kind of got my gears grinding a lot with things. And I also like the fact that you have mentioned that you work with a lot of groups and organizations already. So with funding, hopefully this could just expand a lot more. Yeah. My question is, because I got a message from somebody who's like, this is great, this is great, this is great. I know you mentioned that you are working with those that are like coming out of the county jail. But my question is, because this sounds like something that could be done like in the jail currently, like, is there a plan for that? Do you want to do something like that? Where instead of them coming out and coming to you, I would think that this could be something that we could work with and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody there. I promise I'm trying to, again, my brain is just going. But I'm just wondering, this sounds like a really good thing where we could possibly do something where we can create funding, stand in our lane and doing what our job is here, where we can put this towards folks that are currently incarcerated. So I'm just wondering if there is a plan. Would you like to do something like that? Or, yeah?
That has been brought up with us as far as a role within the jail. It's really hard to find folks to do that work. We struggle. We're in a highly competitive community when it comes to hiring therapists in town. There's a lot of for-profits that we can't compete with. And then it's trying to find, I know there was some funding, it's hard to find a master's level person with all those other opportunities that is passionate about going into a jail and working there. And I don't know where, I think others have tried to come up with people to work. Yeah. Yeah.
Could you move the mic closer to your mouth? The people in the far back can't hear you.
Yes. So it's just hard to find folks to do that, right? I think we're open to a role, but maybe not anything real significant, but helping out. We'd like to be at the table when that's being discussed, and maybe there is a role that we can play in that. Because we do go into the jail. Our outreach coordinator goes in there and interviews people all the time. So our admissions coordinator is really good. She likes going into the jail and meeting with people, and a lot of times we try to get people, the day they get out of jail, they're coming into our residential setting and immediately in our outpatient for an assessment. So we like to coordinate like that. So if anything comes up, we want to be involved, so.
That's good, thank you.
But so far, we haven't been able to commit to anything. So.
Thank you.
But that would be a dream.
Yeah.
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 Just fix everyone up while they're in
Mhm.
there and, yeah,
Mhm.
I know.
Other questions from council?
Not quite that easy, is it?
I was finding out if there were other questions.
I was just like responding to her saying it's not quite that easy.
It's not quite that easy, no. No. Yes? No? No?
I just want to let you know that I am really listening to every word. The reason I'm not giving eye contact is because I'm trying to read it on the screen so I don't miss anything. For those of us who have been with family members or dear friends who have struggled and not always being able to win, and others who are better. I know that a part of this has also got to be what happens. Then how does a family be supportive or leave them alone to make their decisions with you and so forth. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I didn't hear you say that you had any referrals coming from our Veterans Administration. And I know that is something that might be needed with veterans. So if you don't hear from them, if there's a way that you could reach out in whatever way, because that's close to my heart. So thank you.
Yes, and we've worked with the local VA. They have a different type of insurance typically. We get veterans who are on, maybe do not have VA benefits, and we've had them in our program. And we've had veterans in there that we've just accepted, but we typically don't get a lot. We had a grant for 4 years, and I could probably count on one hand the amount of veterans that we got grant funding for.
Really?
Yeah.
They just don't like to
We
ask
just,
for help.
we don't get a lot of referrals for veterans, you know, where they've qualified under a different population, so, yeah.
We do currently have, because I have one as an individual client in Veterans Court, which is not exactly what you're talking about, but it is, it's like problem-solving court, but specific for
Yeah.
veterans,
Yeah.
which is very interesting, and they're both doing really well.
So, yeah, I forgot that.
So I have, along the lines of what Councilor Iverson was talking about, I have questions about the sustainability of, we give you a one-time funding and you're funding people and services, and we know that those costs are gonna continue on. And you mentioned that this will grow your revenues, which have you done, can you provide a little bit more detail on how much needs to grow to then maybe fund what this initial grant would be giving you?
Okay. Well, again, we will continue to work with the Division of Mental Health and Addictions, FSSA, to get funding. I'm sorry. So we will keep our 4 therapists no matter what. As a director, we've never laid off a person since I've been there. We will find a way to continue to fund the program. But again, I'm just saying we're going to see a growth in revenue, and we can track that with you. Again, I don't know how to respond to it other than I just know we find a way to find funding. We're really good at that, so.
Well, the fact that the Board of Commissioners is bringing you to us, implies that they think that this is something worth investing in, and that counts for something. I'm wondering, though, that's a little bit unprecedented because we have just gotten the opioid funds. Are you thinking of managing this as a grant, and therefore, will there be reporting back? We do Sophia Travis grants, very different, but we have a required reporting process. Will there be something like that with this?
We could certainly do something like that. We really haven't gone much further than just wanting to know how receptive council would be for this proposal. But we could certainly do a request for data and for information. And I think that, yeah, I don't see that being a problem at all. I assume you're probably going to be keeping that data in it regardless.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah, go right ahead. I just had, I feel like all the meetings are kind of blurring together. But I thought in our last meeting that we had where we were discussing opioid settlement for another type of project that we had talked about possibly having commissioner and a member of the council to kind of do something together where we're kind of in lockstep with trying to use, make use of the opioid settlement money. Because, okay, so I'm not crazy. Okay, so, because I would like to, a couple of things. One, again, I think this is fantastic. Two, there are other organizations and services, and again, I had mentioned this before because I know our probation office had reached out to myself and Councilor Munson as well about use of this as well. It's a new funding mechanism, and it's not a lot of funds here, but I think if we can work in lockstep together to move forward with this and grant, because I feel like I don't want to get us like too far ahead of a lot of these projects. And again, I'm not saying that this is not worthy at all. I'm thinking that. But I'm also thinking we just came fresh off of JFAC and we have these recommendations that council was presented to you in a work session, and we haven't really done much with that. And I'd like for us to circle back with that because there are things that we could be doing that we heard from community groups and organizations and members of that particular committee where we can start doing those things right now. And so I would like for us to possibly, if we can, get the ball rolling with us doing, if we are going towards this grant, but trying to work with the Office of the Commissioners and the council as well so we can do this in a more collaborative effort. Because again, while I think this is great, I do think that we need to hone in and do this in a way that is productive for both offices. So I just want to circle back with that. And again, I'd like for us to circle back and bring forth our projects that we have given and provided with the rest of the council for JFAC, because maybe there are funding that we could use or things that we can use with opioid settlement money and other funds like ARPA. So yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I do have a recommendation in with Commissioner Githens on doing just that, partnering to kind of talk more about this. And what I'm hearing you say is that we should be a little bit more strategic about what we're doing, and I totally agree. I think that that's how we will be able to fund things like this, but still keep a hold of the bigger picture. I mean, we've got so many moving parts. So that said, I think that is something that we really need to be focused on as we move forward. You did put in an appropriation request for this project. I'm not sure what the temperature is in terms of, I think we all think this sounds amazing.
I can give some financial side, but I see Councilor Hawk.
Let me hear what her question is.
Yes, so following up on what the two of you have said, I think we have to be cautious, and maybe I'm just misunderstanding the flow of the money, but if a lot of the grants are going through the commissioner's office, but the health department says they're not managing the grants, and then the commissioners are going to be managing the grants or whatever, I think we just have to figure out what the process is. But, I don't know whether anybody else sees that as a concern, but we have to watch, or before you know it, we will be going, oh, now we need a whole other new department or a new person to look over all the grants. Yeah, which we already have, but whatever.
No, I think you're right.
Yeah, I definitely support the project. In fact, I'm actually really excited about some of the things that you said. I don't think we should do the appropriation tonight. I do think we should at least essentially have that conversation that Councilor Crossley just mentioned. And, you know, we also had some other kind of related, not related, but analogous projects that were described yesterday at the ARPA discussion related to mental health and substance addiction that we kind of held off on.
That's right.
And so I guess if we're going to move these projects forward, I'd like to move a couple of them together, kind of like we chose to do with food today. And I'd like to let the process that Councilor Crossley described play out a little.
Councilor Iverson.
Let me lend my my voice to what Councilor Crossley said. Is in the Substance Use Disorder Advisory Commission, which met Friday, we reviewed the document that our auditor's department created for the opioid settlement, and there was a lot of conversation about, you know, where can we go with this. I think there's a lot of people that are really interested in a strategy. So your comments are spot on. I think, you know, that document, I think, was sent out on the 6th of this month with a lot of kind of overviews of, you know, here's the links you click on to see the uses or the, you know, whatever. So here's where the dollars are. Here's where, like, we don't even have settlements from, there's pending settlements out there.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, when you said there's a lot of moving parts, there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah. Councilor Deckard and then Councilor Munson.
I just want to say I really appreciate the way that you've explained this and the way that you talk about it and then what you do. And I think on our end, our discussions as they move forward on programs, when we say treatment needs to have some definition to it, like what we just heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times folks in our position start saying treatment. We don't do that. You do that. Yeah. Other entities do that. And it needs to me, layman, not knowing what I know, it needs to look something like that, because that sounds pretty accurate. And if it's not, you fooled me. And I appreciate it. And I know that your history and what you've done didn't happen overnight. You have a tremendous time in this community. And so I just think that as we move forward, all these projects can look like this. And I hear this, I think I said it yesterday in the same seat in the ARPA meeting, from our judicial friends. When they hear sometimes us say treatment as if it's a new thing that's been invented, there are folks doing things that we can figure out how we support, what we implement, what we get in there. And so I think that is an exciting opportunity for all of us to figure out how we support that. The other thing I'll say, and this is just a general comment, is I often hear this county, this community does not look for alternatives to just simply arresting people, locking people up. We spend a long time trying to figure out how we support, do what more we need to do those things. And all communities need to be looking at that hardcore. They need to be engaged in that and helping their folks. And so we're not perfect. We are by far, we have so many errors that we commit, but I think that there are things we can do and we're trying, and let's keep at it. So anyway, I wanted to offer those comments.
Thank you.
I wanted to add a couple cents, and that is, I'm excited about this project. I'm hopeful for long-term continuation of it. And I was very inspired this week by attending the IREX presentation to the county. That was very informative and just inspiring. From the point of view of grants and being responsible for the funding, since this funding is for the citizens of the county, I would like to see a contractual agreement, okay, and a report. And I can just tell you that the Sophia Travis grants, We have a long history of those now since 2008. They didn't start out with having reports. But when we added reports to the responsibility of the grantee, we got better projects from them. And more importantly, the public got to know more about the organizations and what they were doing, and it was an aspect of public education as well.
I had another question. Regarding timing, you spoke a lot about fiscal year funding kind of cycles for your organization, which I got the impression was a June, July turnover. Is that correct? Your fiscal year.
Our fiscal year is July 1.
July
and
1.
June 30th.
Okay, all right. So, and you're looking at funding positions with this request for the current fiscal year or for extending, like what would the period of expenditures be?
I would say the 12 months following funding can be what
I
we've
see.
been tracking.
So not specifically tied to your fiscal calendar, but just
No,
embedded
we-
into
we
your
can
budget?
Gather data and outcomes for any 12-month period.
Okay,
So
okay.
I think that, as Councilmember Crossley was saying, it's really important that that group be established that is going to be looking at the use of these funds. We tend to get caught up in everything else that's going on, and before we know it, 6 months have passed. And so I'm kind of requesting that we not let the 6 months pass. But I do think that, you know, the council member, commissioner, judge, you want to hear from all of them as to how some ideas on the use of these funds. Now, that said, we are expected to receive over, I don't know how many years it is, it's a number of years.
It's like 18 or something.
Yeah, it's a long time. So it's not all at once. But our total expected is $3,000,000. This is so small, $597,505.81, something like that. In 2022, we received in the restricted, and their project clearly meets the criteria for the restricted. We received $436,666.37. And then this year, we have received so far like 86,000. I don't even want to try to read these small numbers. So we were receiving money into this fund at this point in time, and we have some. You have some flexibility. I'm going to stand here to try to get you guys to think about giving them $93,000 tonight. So that's what I was just trying to do. Is the funding is there, and we are supposed to receive, of the 87 that we've received thus far, we're supposed to receive 446,000 in addition to the 542 that we already have. So just wanted to throw that out there.
You're saying we're supposed to receive that for this year?
Yeah, we're supposed to get it before the end of the year. So, and the state's website says we're still supposed to get it, so that there's nothing changing on that level. So I just, you know, they've got a great program that they're wanting to do, so I'm just putting my 2 cents in to go ahead and do that appropriation.
I would add that we did assume we would be doing reporting and any data collecting you need, outcomes, whatever you need. We assumed that, so.
That reminded me, that group, again, also, I think it would be important to establish what kind of reporting that you want to get. So we have consistent reporting across the board. And I think that was it. It was the establishing kind of the policies. But what in this case, even if you appropriate it, we still have to create a contract, which would outline the requirements, the reporting requirements, and it would still have to be signed by the commissioners.
And would the contract include the scope of work that then the reporting could be based on? And yeah. So I know that, your office already has our recommendation for who would be on the committee. I communicated with Commissioner Githens, yeah. And so, I think that could begin immediately, anytime. I'm intrigued that SUDAC is already looking at the paperwork and maybe an additional SUDAC member could sit as part of this committee, maybe a citizen representative, just to provide that other perspective.
You actually have two people on, I think, aren't you on SUDAC?
So I'm the president of SUDAC, and
so-
Commissioner Githens sits on SUDAC as well, so.
So there, you have that representative there. I'm sometimes
Okay.
being outside of
Okay.
county government can get a little dirty.
All right.
That was on record.
So maybe, could we maybe table this until you have drawn up a contract that we can see what the scope of work is? Would that be an appropriate?
I was just going
Way
to
to
move
move-
to continue this to the November 14th meeting.
All
since
right.
we have an
I'll
appropriation.
second that.
You want to see a contract? at that
Yeah.
time?
I want this group that we described about to meet
To
also and to
Yeah.
discuss how this fits in with the big picture
That'd be great.
too.
Yeah, because we know how much we're supposed to get each year, right? So it's not
So,
Yeah, it's,
let's make a plan.
exactly, make a plan. Okay.
okay,
table
so
this.
there was a motion and a second. Did you get that, Courtney? Thank you. To table it to, are we doing November 14th?
That's what I said, although I'm
I-
open to other.
Okay. And that does not require that you come back for another long meeting presentation. You could join via Zoom, or you could, have Angie represent you. We're not trying to just eat up all of your evenings. But we need to get our ducks in a row a little bit. I think there's very clear support. So I'm optimistic. We just need to have a picture of what goes around this project as well. Any further comment or questions? No?
I just wanted a clarification in that on the 14th, you'd like to see a proposed contract with the scope of work.
Yes, yeah. We can talk. I nominated Peter to be part of the group.
And I have all the time in the world to work on this. I do.
I also
This is important-
suggest,
this is
I
important to me.
also
Yeah.
gave other names. If you want 2 or 3 council members, you've got us. We're all in, and so, whatever representation you'd like to see from council, we are interested.
Small is good, otherwise
small is
it's
good.
really hard
Otherwise
to
you'll
Well, not
schedule
the
a meeting.
whole
Then you
council.
can't get them all
Otherwise, it's hard to
together.
schedule
Yeah.
a meeting,
Mhm.
as you know.
Yes, as we know.
Kittens.
Thank you guys for
And
your time.
thank you for being here. It was very
And
interesting.
I want to say we appreciate Ann. She's been really helpful and supportive the last few months.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do too.
They're very good, thank you. They're very good about.
Thanks so much.
Still have to
reaching out
vote on, we still have
Thank
to
you.
vote on.
Oh, we have to vote on the
continuing.
motion?
Oh, the table.
All right. Could we have a roll call vote on the motion to table?
Or you can call,
What?
just voice.
Voice vote? Okay, all in favor of tabling? Say
Aye.
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 And if you're not in favor, say nay. The ayes have it. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
This takes us to
Item
13.
13.
Council, I moved to open for discussion the creation of a correctional facility transition team.
Seconding that opening?
Oh, second, sorry.
No worries. So we have Mr. Gibbons, Mr. Parker, and Mr. Miller, and Sheriff Martin. We've got all the players.
Yeah, the
here.
whole team is
Look at
here.
y'all.
Do you want to be up here?
So thank you for giving us your precious time this evening.
Thank you.
It's good to see all of you and all of you smiling. the reason why I want the whole team here is to answer any of your questions if you can. This is a crucial position that we're about to explain why and what they're going to do if it's approved. We're changing a little bit. Instead of discussing the actual transitional team members, we want to discuss transitional team director.
Okay.
We feel that's crucial first before we get to members. I think it's crucial for the council to understand why we're about to explain when I give the floor to the chief. This undertaking is going to be tremendous. We want to make sure that we get close to as possibly get this done right, because it's very crucial that we're all in the same sheet of music as far as why we need to proceed a certain way, because we're going to need your support tremendously for this. However, we all agree that we do need a new jail. Now, how do we proceed from that point on? That's delicate, and I understand that. But if we do proceed, we have to make sure that we all agree to this particular position that we're going to try to describe to you. Now, we learned about this through the appointed training. Some of you were there, so you know. So the chief and the jail commander and put a lot of time in trying to simplify what they're passing out to you now. So when you have time, you want to read about it, or if you want us to come back and discuss it, we'd be more than happy to do so. So with that being said, I'll pass the floor on to Chief Deputy Parker.
Okay. I have a tendency to not talk into this thing, so I'm trying to do better tonight. As the sheriff said, we want to kind of pivot to the transition team director. And, it struck me as I was listening to the previous presentation, a lot of acronyms that we use, but anyway, when you're talking about all of these different things that are coming, like through JFAC and the IRX program and all those things, I think the thing that's really important to that, if you look down through that list, many of those things start, happen, and end at the jail. It's been kind of the focal point of this whole thing, and we're starting to engage in building this new facility, and all of the things that we want to accomplish will hinge on whether or not we do it right, whether we think it through, whether we're thoughtful in this process, and whether we have the people in place that can help guide that process through a very lengthy, complex, expensive, whatever label you want to put on it. It's going to be all of the above. So I don't know about you folks, but there seems to be a certain part of this that we've all been kind of walking around in a fog, trying to find our way out of it, because it is so complex. And for us, the transition team director is the first phase of stepping out of that fog, where we start to take some very immediate steps to, all right, we're going to start taking action and we're going to start moving. So we put together this document here, and I don't want to sit here and read it all to you, but it's there for your perusal. But I do want to highlight a few things from this document. And starting on page 1 there, sometimes I think transition team is a title of this that kind of does us a disservice when we're talking to folks like you, because it implies that once we get the jail built, now we got to do something. We got to transition to the new jail. So what we learned in the pony training, and it just makes sense if you just stop and think about it, that transition starts at the planning phase and goes all the way through post-occupancy. And we'll talk a little bit about that tonight, but we're already in the planning phase. When we went through pony training and we were talking about, we're doing site evaluations and things like that, he goes, you should already have your transition team going up. So we wanted to pivot again, because I don't know how you form a team without the director first. So we'll walk through this a little bit. But I want you to look at that little diagram there. It's Phil Parker's computer skills on display, But look down through there, there's a sentence that the paragraph starts, there are thousands of tasks that occur during transition. And I want us to let that sink in. There are thousands of tasks that occur in transition. So it's not something that we can just, okay, let's start thinking about this and let's start doing it. So you walk through it, and we talk about the transition activities, and we have just bulleted some things that deal with the design phase. And then there's construction observation. And then there's all the documents that you have to develop. You've got to train your staff and planning an order and placing of furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Just think about that. That seems kind of menial to put on here, but you've got to think about your control room, where every person that moves through that jail is going to have an access point. And we've got a plan how that's all going to lay out and what that control system looks like. So I'm telling you, when you start talking about equipment, just the control board. If you went in there and watched one of these, you'd probably like, oh my God, how do they do this? Because there's cameras and there's people moving through that jail hundreds and hundreds of times a day. So something that seems so simple is so complex. And then you look at about the public events and the move-in logistics and the post-occupancy. And I just tried to document this in consultation with the sheriff and the jail commander. And then you have a transition plan. But go to this last page here, page 4, and thinking about transition. Some key things to remember. Transition starts early, requires a team, requires extra staff. It's a full-time job. It's not a part-time job. It means training. It means seeking all kinds of help. It's a long-term project. It requires funding, and it's essential, if nothing else, take nothing out, it's for safety, effectively, and efficiency. So I want to tell you what our thoughts are with this transition team director. I strongly feel that, and we all feel, that the transition team director needs to be coming on board as soon as we can come to an agreement with how we're going to do that and what that's going to look like. I met with Molly, Molly, when did we meet? I don't even remember. I don't even know what date it is, to be honest with you.
We met on Friday.
Yeah, we met Friday to start hammering out the contract. And I think we all kind of agreed this is going to be a contract employee. And so we're trying to hammer out what that contract's going to look like. But I guess the main thing I would try to impart upon us, everybody, that we don't step over dollars to pick up dimes here. And I'm going to make that make sense here in just a second. That we got to be careful. We need to attract a quality person to this. The massiveness of this project is going to require someone who's in tune with what we're trying to accomplish, and to be able to walk through this process with all of us, keep us all informed, make sure that we're staying on track. And that's, I mean, just think about the enormity of, I mean, that's going to be dealing with DLZ, that's going to be dealing with the public, that's going to be dealing with this commission, it's going to be dealing with imparting information about where we're at every step of this. And then, in addition, just to make sure it all stays put together so that when the move-in day comes, and I think we've seen one facility that was built and was sitting there empty for an extended period of time because the plan to get from A to Z had some gaps in it, and they hadn't put it all together. I don't want us to be there, and I know the sheriff doesn't want us to be there. I know we don't want to be there. So I don't know if this is the time where we talk about the term of this contract, what the salary of this contract is. I'm looking for you to, we've got our ideas, and we'd like to bring them forth tonight, but I don't know if that's the right time or not. Molly, am I saying this right? Okay.
As the chief made his remarks and try to explain the urgency of why we find this will be so important, in the back of our heads, every time we get together, we think of, in the midst of all this, we still have an operation to run, which is 24/7, period. And one of the things that that it's kind of hard for us to really articulate and explain to people that don't do this for a living. We don't know what tomorrow holds for us. There was one incident, as you know, at the jail with the gas leak. I cannot tell you the seriousness when that took place. And we had a scramble and all hands on deck, which means that if we don't have the tools that we need for this transition team, it's just not going to happen. I mean, I have to be very honest with you. Because, again, we just don't know what lies around the corner. With a facility this old, we have to be very flexible in our time at the point that we're at now. We're close to almost a year now. And everything that we have accomplished, we cannot sacrifice right now if we don't have the tools to move forward with this other large, very large project that we have now. So I just want to put that in perspective that this is very crucial that we have the right person. And this is the time right now, because when we went through that training, you know, to our surprise, we're somewhat behind the 8 ball as we speak. So that being said, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have of us and put your concerns to rest if we can.
Thank you. I think the first question I have is, are we envisioning this as a contract with the county, therefore with the commissioners, or is this a contract with the sheriff?
At our meeting on Friday, Jeff, Phil, and I discussed that this would be a contract with the sheriff, ultimately approved at the commissioners meeting, but that this transitional director would be reporting to the sheriff and would be overseen by the sheriff.
Okay, all right, just wanted to kind of make sure that we were all understanding that.
So this would be a services contract?
Yes.
And really
Yeah.
not involve the council in any way except for
Money.
appropriation. Appropriation, of course.
Correct.
Well, and if I may, I think one of the ways that it involves the councils is if this is a service contract that's paid out of ARPA, then this would be an ARPA decision for the council to consider.
Which we talked about last night, so.
Counselor McKim.
Do you have a model statement of work or anything that you've been working on?
This is kind of it. Now, the contract that Molly and I are hammering out, we'll have that scope of work, we'll have those things laid out. And we got a fairly good start on it, wouldn't you agree?
I agree. I have, on Friday after our meeting, I was able to draft a contract. I have an Exhibit A that I'm going to send to Chief Deputy Parker, which I think outlines a lot of more detailed job descriptions. So I think that we could get the contract done fairly quickly.
Okay.
I think the contract just says duties as assigned by the sheriff. I think that's all it says. So, because this thing, if we try to, you know, it's going to have some generalities in it because it is going to be ever changing. It's going to be very fluid what this person is going to be required to do in the hours.
And then, so do you have an estimated cost for a year?
Yes, we're asking this the salary for this contract to be $100,000 a year for this individual. And I know we look at that and go, okay, that's a pretty good salary. But I would like to point out that as it's a contract position, what's fringe now on salary? What, 20? It was 25 to 30% somewhere now. You know, so you can look at that and go, okay, you're not paying fringe on that. So I just want to make sure we attract a very quality
I don't think
person.
100,000 is high. No,
Yeah.
don't.
Okay, I just you never know how people are going to react to that. So
Yeah, no,
I mean, I wouldn't do it.
So, okay, so we got kind of the idea of a salary and how the contract would work in terms of reporting. The title is director, and so my next question is, does that mean that other members of whatever transition team comes next would be supervised by this contract person?
Yes.
And, okay,
He will manage their activities, their assignments, everything about when they're actually assigned to that team. He will be detailing out what he wants them to accomplish in each day, given their assignments out to them. Now, I'm sorry? Yeah, follow up, making sure that what he's delegated is went done. Now, I'll tell you this. I want to put everybody at ease here. While we need the director to handle the daily activities of that, I can absolutely assure you 100% that we take this, we know what's in front of us to a certain extent, and we know that our involvement is going to be critical. So I anticipate daily communication from the sheriff, myself, Kyle, with this person. If daily conversations, if not daily meetings, at least some contact of where we're at, what we're doing, to make sure that we're doing what we know we must and moving in the right direction on this in each phase of this. So there'll be a lot of collaboration with the people you see sitting here.
okay, I'm gonna go with Counselor Iverson, and then we can go back to you.
I have a question on collaboration, and I have a question that's not on collaboration. Will this person be collaborating with DLZ? Will they have a pretty good relationship with?
Absolutely.
Or whoever holds the contract? Or the commissioner?
Absolutely. They will be, in the initial phases of that, they're going to be collaborating with them almost exclusively as we get through the design
Throughout that
process.
design phase, yeah.
Mhm.
That is so vital.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely it is.
Yeah, yeah.
So was DLZ involved in the meeting with Molly?
No.
Okay.
They were not involved in the Friday meeting, but we did have the opportunity to meet with DLZ earlier in the week to discuss the transitional team and what their role would be.
Okay.
So there are things happening already that if I had my way, we would have had this individual, already selected, because right now, I think Commissioner Giffens is setting up even another trip to another jail.
Right, right, for later
and
this week.
This person, we could go, but now we have to bring this person up to speed. And I know for a fact, our plans just changes constantly. So this individual is the one that really needs to be there in case we cannot.
So besides visiting jails, what would this person be doing tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
Yeah, like if,
Yep.
day one.
They would be meeting with DLZ to say, okay, what phase are you in, or what are you looking at? And then what they would do tomorrow, if we have the director, we'd be having a conversation about the team. And I want the director to be involved in selecting this team. So then when he goes back, when he meets with DLZ to say, okay, here's the phase that we're in. Meet with that team and go, okay, we're starting the design of this jail. We're starting it very, very quickly. And you put together that team to say, okay, what do we want to do in terms of this design? And we've talked about this in terms of, I'll pull one thing out of the air, proximity. Where's the best place to put your control room? Where's the best place to put your medical office as compared to intake? All of those things that if you don't do, when you open up that jail and you're like, oh my God, we're walking, people suffering from a medical condition from this end of the building to this end of the building with the medical because we didn't think it out. So they will immediately be involved in that type of dialogue and that type of exercise.
With DLZ, and therefore representing, or would you think that this person then would be representing kind of your collective viewpoint at the table with DLZ, who's obviously doing design work?
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now,
Okay.
if you see this action pamphlet here, that's kind of small compared to what we truly have, which is very thick. That individual's going to have to understand that as well, so moving forward.
Well, I didn't want to give this to you because I want you to throw it at me. So.
But that's small.
We have a copy in the council
okay.
office.
It's okay.
So even though we concentrate on DLZ, we haven't even talked about the programs that we have in the jail right now, and furthermore, the ones that we're thinking of in the future.
Yeah.
That's going to be part of that. So all that is very critical, although we're saying DLZ, but it's going to be other things that we might not be thinking about it right now tonight because we're tired.
Right.
But I guarantee you that individual responsibility is to see what we're not seeing and then bring it forth.
Here's one thing we're gonna have him do. He's gonna go to our facility and spend some time in that facility. How do you book someone in? And he's gonna be asking questions. What's efficient about this? What's inefficient about this?
Okay.
How can we improve that? And he'll start building that as we go. And yes, Colin just brought my attention. We had this meeting with DLZ. I would have loved to have had him there. Or her, or whoever this turns out to be, so that every day, and I know I'm beating a dead horse here, but every day that we have one of these meetings, this person is falling further and further behind. We have to bring them up to speed.
And it's now that the community is learning by Iraq, right?
Yeah,
I mean, everyone that I'm hearing saying, that's a great program. Yeah, it is great. But if we don't have it set up in the jail, you could go ahead and wish all you want. We have to, the jail has to be prepared to start that in the right foot. And it starts at the jail. And that individuals will be very crucial now for that to be successful as well. I do know it's a lot of components, but if those components don't start the program, it has to start within the jail. That's another responsibility this person's gonna have to have.
I'm going to let Counselor McKim speak. Sorry, I keep.
That's okay.
It's a lot.
Actually, this may be a question for Ms. Turner King as much as anybody, but what are you thinking in terms of period of performance? Are you thinking like 1 year with a couple 1-year options, or how would you structure the?
I think what we discussed on Friday would be that this would be a 3-year contract, and that this individual would do bi-weekly or bi-monthly reports to the sheriff, as well as updates to the counselor and commissioners as requested or directed.
And I think it's important too that we, we're gonna have the clause in there that, if things aren't working out, it's a 30-day and see you later. Or if this person decides that this is not for them, because we don't want a director that doesn't want to be here. So I think we make this a easy come, easy go type thing here. But I'm not an ARPA expert by any means, but I think that money has to be spent by the end of 2026, right? Yes. So that's what we were kind of looking for, was a 3-year contract with some language of, making sure that we're providing reports and updates. And, but here's one thing I don't want to do. I don't want to get bogged down in minutia here. And the sheriff, I've talked about this at length. When you start requiring, weekly reports, and what you wind up doing is you're making the guy do reports instead of doing the work. So we've got to find a happy medium there where they're able to do the report, able to report back to us what they're doing, but they're not bogged down in administrative, silliness that they can't actually do their job. So we can be very cognizant of that.
Okay. Counselor McKim and then Counselor Hawk.
I'm Counselor McKim.
Oh, Counselor Iverson and then Counselor. Sorry.
So, Counselor Willetts asked a really good question just now, and she said, what are they going to do tomorrow? And I think one of the things that you have on page 1 is the staffing plan.
Yes.
Counselor Munson and I were the 2 council members that were in that pony training. And when they were here, I can distinctly remember him looking me dead in the eyes and saying, hey, you're the money guy, pay attention to this. And as he started through the staffing plan section, he said, this is what bankrupts jails, or not bankrupts, but he said, this is where jails get into trouble, is they either underplan or they overplan. And if you don't have your staffing plan right, you're gonna pay for it. And so I think this is a fantastic thing to have on their agenda. And I think that's something that they could start working on now, particularly as DLZ is starting to put together their design elements.
Well, and if you go to page 4, you'll see at the very top, it says developing the transition plan. And that's all there is there. Because I was gonna start to put some bullets on there, but this thing would have been 80 pages long when you start talking about what a transition plan looks like. So day 1, we're going to be talking to this person, start working on your transition plan from design to post-occupancy.
And I think if the way that the community is thinking about, this jail, and there's a lot of opinions floating around, right?
Sure.
But I'm not sure that the staffing plan is going to look in Monroe County like it's going to look anywhere else.
Sure.
So I think it's just really important that that's on there.
One of the things that was running through my mind the other day is that this person, we're going to send him on some prisoner transports. I want this person to know what that looks like, what that feels like, what is involved in that, because that plays right into your staffing plan.
What was the first part of what you just said? I missed it.
If I want this person to go on a couple prisoner transports, so they know what that feels like, what that looks like, because if we co-locate, may not be a huge issue, but if we don't initially, that's going to be a monstrous issue that this person is going to have to contend with and develop a staffing plan for. So, again, the thousands of tasks that occur, if we just sit around the room and start thinking about it, it makes you wonder if we can actually pull this off or not. It truly does. I mean, it scares the crap out of me.
Well,
You know?
Okay.
I believe in us.
But the rubber's going to meet the road right here with us, and
I understand.
that's why we're here.
I understand that. You had something? Oh, please go ahead.
So a comment and then a question. First, I think having the transition director identified first before you really start asking for support for other transition team members is really, really important. And I'm very glad that you've shifted over to this. So thank you for that. Second, do you all have any idea who you might contact about this job? Do you have a...
Well, as you know, the sheriff and I, have spent, I don't know, a century, I don't know how many years, 40 and 30, 70, 75 years or so. In this. So we've got, we've got people that we have made contact with over that period of time. We have a few people in mind, but I will tell you this, I've not spoken to any of them because I'm not doing that without the blessing of this body, of what that contract's going to look like, what those duties are going to be, because, I don't think it would be fair at this point. So I can only imagine that that's going to be a little bit of a search for us.
Yes.
And again, I know we've said this before, that plays into, I just can't pick up the phone and call somebody and he's here tomorrow. So, it's going to take some time to find that right person. So.
Yeah.
So first things first, definitely want to talk to this council and then move from there so we know what we're working with. But I assure you that, we think long and hard before we take a step because we know the ripple effect it's going to have, and we don't work in this alone. However, this person, as again, like the chief stated, we're going to have an individual that has highly qualified skills to do this, because you get one chance at this to do it right. And like Councilor Everson mentioned, that trainer, when he looked at that, he did it intentionally. He said, you got to pay attention to this. And I take it at heart because he's done this before. I have not. He has. So when he says to us, hey, you behind the 8 ball, you need to pick up your speed on this thing, I truly took it to heart. So first things first, we need to make sure that this body is okay and approves and agrees, and then we'll move forward as fast as we can. As far as report goes, if I haven't proved it right now, if you need an answer or a question, we don't have to come here every single time. We will give you a response to you. I think we bend backwards to try to respond to you, even individually if we need to. We have no problem doing that. So rest assured that, are we going to be tremendously busy? Yeah, but never too busy enough to answer your question. That will never happen.
Councilor Hawk.
Yes, I heard it mentioned before, a job description. Well, I just don't think that at this point you could actually write a job description. But in the service contract, you might just point out, these are some of the services, the different places you want to hit, at what stage it's going to be, and then to leave it wide open that you can change the daily schedule anytime you want. We don't tell you what your daily schedule is.
Right.
I mean, absolutely. And so unless you've seen other such service contracts that you could sort of use as a guideline. But if you haven't, then I would suggest that the more wide open you leave it is going to be much better for you so that you can adjust as needs come up. That would be one of my suggestions. The other one is I haven't heard yet where this person is to be, actually physically located. I would assume, would hope that it would be in the jail. If that, or the sheriff's department or something, so that he can see the daily goings on and pick up what you might have forgot to tell him because you're so used to seeing it all the time, you think everybody knows it. And that, would suggest that I'd like to know where this person's going to be, not sitting at home, working from home.
We've had some discussions about that. It won't be working from home, I can assure you that.
I don't think we have any staff that
We don't do that.
in our environment that has the luxury of being home and working from home. That's not going to happen.
I'll tell you this, in our facility, I don't even know if we have a broom closet available for an office. And you've all been there. We have people packed into every corner. So we have had some discussions about where we're going to physically locate this, because keep in mind, right now, today, let's say we do this tomorrow, it's going to be the director. In a few short weeks, it's going to be a team. So there's going to have to be a location that is able to house the director and his team so they can have frequent conversations. So we're looking at some possibilities, but we want to keep it very close to the sheriff's office. It's just not, I don't think it's even remotely feasible to have it at the sheriff's office. I would love to. If we had a new jail, we could do it there. But
Well,
you have any empty cells?
Yeah.
Empty cells. Yes, take one of those cells.
Yeah.
I just want to say, as much as I appreciate seeing you folks, however many times a month, you have a job to do. You really do. And your job is more than just help us get a new jail. And so I think the more that we expect from you, the less is getting done, because there's only so much each individual can do. And you all have other family obligations and so forth. So I think the sooner we get this on board and let you folks get about the business of doing what you're elected to do, what you folks have been appointed as the people to be the right hand and the left hand of the sheriff to get about doing your business. So I hope that we can get moving on this.
Thank you for that.
Councilor McKim and then Councilor Decker, did you have?
I guess I just want to know, is there any, since it is actually getting kind of late and hopefully we can wrap this up, is there anything else that you need from us? I mean, I think we've all expressed support for moving ahead. Is anybody not?
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, just.
Oh, you still have questions?
Immediate
Okay.
action.
All right, well then never mind.
Kyle, did you want to say?
Sure, I'll take up some more time. I will say only this. The pony training itself was eye-opening, even for me, someone who's been involved in this business for almost 20 years. The number one thing, I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the instructor wanted to get through to us was the later you are in bringing in a team and bringing in your director, the more it's going to cost us in the end. We work very hard to be cost effective across the entire county. But when it comes to even the thought of, and I'm sure I know right now we're waiting to get some tests back on different properties and stuff like that. I'm sure that once we do, things are going to move very quickly. And the more time that we sit waiting, the more cost ineffective it's going to be for us. That's really all I have to add.
Jordan, you want to add anything? You guys have all covered it.
Okay. Councilor Decker?
Appreciate the support.
I appreciate this information. I don't serve on JFAC. I kind of just pick up things through the courthouse mill and people on the streets and all that. I kind of heard some different descriptions than what you presented tonight. I like this contract option. I kind of wish I'd heard that earlier because it puts me more at ease. I think it does work. Earlier today, I had a bit of a soliloquy in here on job descriptions, and I was a little bit nervous about adding a bunch of job descriptions for this because it sounds like a transitional position with a lot of very precise things that you want covered under the contract. And I think that's good. You all are the experts on it. And I kind of like transferring that responsibility on that contract management to you and away from a job description. And here's why I say that. The more I hear you describe this, the more I'm hoping and praying for you, you find this Superman, Superwoman out there that's going to do all these things. It seems like a lot for a contract. And only advice I'd have is on this contract, I would put in there several, and you don't need advice from me, but I would just offer this. I'd put in several very specific what you expect to be done for that, because breaking a contract, particularly a contract that's not just some consultant coming in and giving you a report, which is not as easy as it sounds, but not as hard as what this is. This is a very action-orientated, I expect this, and if this doesn't go well, bottom drops out. And this is one that the bottom can't drop out. You know, the Justice Building as it currently sits was a solution to keep this courthouse. A byproduct of that solution was the jail that you're now managing. And so now we're kind of moving down the road on that one. This person can't have that kind of a moment. And I just see a lot of stuff that's been described in here. So I think for that contract, I'd be specific on what success looks like to you and how you get out of it when success is not achieved, because you'll have to recover so quickly. I think it's easier to say you've not lived up to this job description and I'm making a different decision than it is to break a contract. I mean, it's a whole thing with legal and courts. And so anyway, that's just some candid thoughts to think about. I like this approach better. Contract.
It's a reasonable request. One thing I could tell you that, are we new to this? Yes, we are. But what I can tell you is we are learning from the mistakes from the past, and I do not know who was part of that. I'm not saying that they knew this was going to get to the point where we're at right now.
Yeah.
But we're going to try our best not to make certain things. Now, that being said, 30, 20 years from now, we won't be around, but our predecessors might say, well, what were they thinking back then?
That's right.
So we're going to do the very best that we can with information and knowledge that we have now.
Yeah.
And hopefully and willingly, working as a team, we could do the very best that we have right now with the issues that we have right now.
Awesome.
Short of that, I don't know what else we can do.
It's as good as you can do, right?
What you said there rings really true with us. And I want to assure everybody here, we put this team together, the sheriff did, and the responsibility of this that sits on our shoulders, that's not lost on us. But I will also tell you the faith that you guys are giving us to perform that's not lost on us either. So, I think we're up to the task. We're certainly going to try, because there's a lot of faith in this community and this sheriff and his staff. And so far, I hope we have headed in the right direction. And, responsibility of that is it's a monumental task, but we all accepted it, and we appreciate the faith that you have in us. We truly do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions for the superheroes at the end of the table here? ARPA was mentioned, and I did not attend the ARPA meeting yesterday. Was this brought up at all during the ARPA discussion yesterday?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just go back.
Now, I will say that there was not universal support for including this. I mean,
Okay.
In particular, I think the commissioners seemed to be less favorable to including this in ARPA. But we reduced the amount in the kind of spreadsheet, which really doesn't mean anything, to 200,000, but that can be either upped or lowered, based on consensus with the commissioners.
But it was mentioned
But it was.
that by the commissioners, that they really didn't have anything in front of them to look at what the numbers or anything of the sort. Well, now we're hearing 100,000 for 3 years. That means if we would budget 300,000 out of that ARPA money, because we have to get it spent down by 2026, right?
That's the point.
And so that would cover but by the end of 2026?
Mhm.
Okay, so that would cover 24, 25, and 26,
Mhm.
300,000, boom, we're done.
Probably not all of it. I mean, presumably there's going to be some escalation
There might
from
be
year
some
to
more
year.
transitioning.
That's true.
Right, right, and
After
I'm
26.
sure.
I agree.
And
Yeah.
then before you know it, if they've got to have a desk, and they've got to have this and that, and, you know, there's other expenses. But what I would really hope that we would work together as a group and with the commissioners, that we would use as much of this ARPA money as possible to cover county government expenses, because there is not going to be a way to cover jail, building a jail, and start adding on a lot of other things unless there is going to be a gigantic other tax increase, which I would be loath to be looking at right now.
Yeah.
Well, look into the
Probably
future. I
not.
think it would be disingenuous of us to not at least throw out there that this transition is not going to end on December 31 of 2026.
Yeah.
It's
No,
not
we-
going to
yeah.
happen. But it's a real good start.
Yeah. All right.
By 2027, we're gonna be looking at a whole lot of different problems right now. Because if the city went the annexation thing, we're gonna be talking about a whole lot of different
Yeah, that's
changes.
true.
So, just saying.
So I don't have any other questions. I have 100, but I'm not going to ask them tonight. Are there anything else from council? Because it sounds as though we understand what you're looking at. It seems like a reasonable approach. You're working with Molly, and go forth.
Shout out
We
to
know
Molly.
we have to figure out how to pay for it.
Molly and Jeff have been spot on help for us. I want to thank them for that.
Yeah.
Pay for it.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We can now take a 10-minute break.
Well, thank you, everyone.
Great.
Really appreciate it.
We are at item number 14 with our auditor's office.
Council, I move to approve the auditor's request for a new account line 18501 compensatory time payout in Fund 10000002, General Fund Auditor to pay out an employee's accumulated compensatory time transitioning to a new department. We found my kryptonite here.
Second.
Okay.
Wait.
As long as this can be fast, I feel bad about making Commissioner Gibbons, but we probably should have rearranged it, but oh well.
I had no idea we were doing all this, but okay. Whose meeting is this? It's the people's meeting. So are you seconding that motion? You don't have?
I second it.
Peter
Oh,
seconded it.
okay, I'm sorry, I just wanted,
Jeff off the hook.
Some-
excellent. So, do you want to give back,
I can real quick.
Okay.
So this is a request from the auditor's office to pay the comp time earned by an employee that left the auditor's office and transferred to another county office. Per the personnel policy, comp time would not transfer. So they were just requesting the creation of the line, and this is in response to Resolution 2023-10, which the council reviewed last year, that says they would ask for the creation of a comp time line.
so, she's holding it, like it's right here, you signed it. That resolution says that that departments should create a line in order to pay out comp time.
Yes, it says when an employee either terminates employment within Monroe County or transfers between departments, and that employee has incurred compensatory time, the employee will receive their accrued comp time or receive monetary compensation for the time. So they either have to use it before they leave or they get paid for it.
Yes.
And an elected official that is requesting the payment of comp time will do so by completing a council agenda request they will request the creation of the line for the purposes of facilitating the payment within the department's budget. It does say, though, that if funds for the payment to cover accrued time shall be transferred from another account line within the budget, and that they would come and ask for an additional appropriation when their budget does not have the necessary funds. So they could do a transfer.
Why wouldn't they just pay it out of the line from which that employee was being paid?
I think the intent was that they would create a comp time payout line so that council could track how much we're paying for comp time payouts.
At one time, comp time payouts became a major issue.
It was.
It hasn't been as much lately, but at one time that was a big issue.
Can we say, can we create a line and then have it sunset after it's used? So that each time it has, I mean, because once you've created the line, then that department has the line and doesn't have to come back.
Well, as long as there's something in that
You're
line.
right, exactly. Not if it's zero, right?
But theoretically, they could do an in-house transfer into that line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, they could easily transfer $1 more than they need to use today, and I'm not saying that anybody's like gaming the system, but it does sort of seem messy.
Well, I think if we just appropriate the requested amount of $487.
Well, no, we're not. This is not an appropriation request.
This is just a request to create
and I would
the
not
comp time.
support an appropriation request. I think the budget has it in it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just a request to create the line so they could do an in-house transfer.
Okay.
It sounds like that's what the order, we've already signed an ordinance saying this is the process. So what the auditor is going through is what
The process.
is the process,
Correct.
including creating the line.
Correct.
I'm just wondering if there's a way to close out the line.
We can always delete it and in the next meeting then, once it's paid out, right?
Can we say right now that we want it deleted after it's paid?
That is
Efficiency.
not included in the resolution, but I guess.
Does anyone see a point in doing that besides me?
What's the, I guess I still don't understand what the problem, what the fear is. Like what bad thing would happen if that line existed?
Well,
It doesn't allow, I mean, simply the existence of a line doesn't create any more money, and it doesn't allow them to pay an employee outside of the salary ordinance or outside of the personnel policy
And
handbook,
I think
right?
if you wanted to track comp time payout, and we created a system for doing that, this subverts the system. Because it then allows them to have this line, and they can do comp time payouts out of this line for anyone else. And that's fine. I don't anticipate saying no, but then we lost that tracking ability if that's what this was about.
The tracking ability is.
Right? I don't know.
I'm not seeing that. How are we losing the tracking ability?
I guess we could go back and track it because it got moved to a line and paid out, and that would leave a trail, but we wouldn't know when it was happening, and I guess that was what I thought.
You wouldn't
Y'all
be
wanted.
approving the in-house transfers, but like a report could be generated to show when the in-house
Right.
transfers occurred.
Yeah, because they could just use it whenever they wanted, which, I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm just taking it at your word that this has been a problem, so there was a reason for us to.
What happened was that there were employees in certain departments that were accruing really large amounts of comp time, and then it would really create a problem when that employee left.
Yeah, because it wouldn't even be budgeted.
And in fact, it essentially would force our hand to do an appropriation if we allowed them to accrue too much and then they quit.
How does this address that?
This particularly doesn't. What we did is if the comp time exceeded a certain threshold, and I don't remember what that number is. Maybe
It's currently
Molly does.
40, but we're working with the Personnel
Trying to up
Policy
it.
Board to try to amend it to 60.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But it used to be, if it's above a
That's a
certain
different
amount, then it
thing.
has to be paid out of the council budget.
And the resolution does include procedures for payout. So it says that first the department head will pay from the remainder of the budgeted appropriation in the salary line for the employee. If that's not sufficient, then other appropriations budgeted in the department's personnel. And then other appropriations budgeted in the department's supplies or services, which would be a category transfer that the council would look at. And lastly, additional appropriations.
Got it. That part all makes sense to me.
I mean, if the question is, are we doing something special for one employee that we don't do for others? The answer is no.
Right.
We're following the procedure to the letter. So,
Well, the one thing, if I could add to it, we're having a pretty intense discussion on a line, a mechanism, a person, an individual, and a payout for work done. And I always worry just a little bit that in an effort to track, cajole, see, move, know, get one up on, sometimes we can chase a detail down a hallway and kind of miss the larger picture just a bit. Because and I say this, I know everyone gets tired when I say this, as a son of a retired county employee, what happens is when we talk in any negative way about comp time that is fairly earned, and if something is unfairly happening there, you know, whoever is doing it, whoever is authorizing it, whoever is permitting it, they're putting themselves vulnerable to the law, the State Board of Accounts, you name it. But for that which is fairly earned has to be fairly paid. And generally behind everything that we do, there's a service supplied to the taxpayer for a good and service, right? So people need things from the health department, they need things from the health department. So I'm okay with us, of course, doing this, tracking things, et cetera, but I want to make sure that it doesn't turn into elected officials or department heads not having someone work or accrue comp time or not consider comp time because they think that our eye is too stern on it.
Right. I have no problem with comp time being paid out. That part, and you're right. Maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I just don't see how the 2023 resolution makes any sense.
well, may I suggest that if you don't like the policy, then we add to a future agenda maybe a proposed
It's just
solution,
me.
and then for this one we just implement the policy. And
That's fine. I mean, I'm not going to do that unless there's a general will of people wanting to change the policy, and I'm not sensing that at all. Are there actual questions about this item?
No.
All right.
those were all actual questions.
Those were actual questions.
Sorry, they were all from my complaint, so whatever. Any public comment on this riveting item? All right. In that case, could we have a roll call vote?
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimous.
Thank you. Now we have item 15, the American Rescue Plan Act that we table every time. But it looks as though some items have been added.
Yeah, Council, I'd like to make a motion to approve the appropriation in Fund 89500000 American Rescue Plan Act in the following account lines. 29001 ARPA gun safes, $40,000. 36709 ARPA rural housing repair, $200,000. 36710 ARPA septic assistance, $200,000. 37486 ARPA pantry 279, $65,000. 37487 ARPA Hoosier Hills Food Pantry, $100,000. 37488 ARPA Community Kitchen, $400,000. 37489 ARPA People's Market, $48,000. 37491 ARPA Smart Start Community Foundation, $200,000. 48007 ARP at Summit Hill, $700,000 for a total appropriation of $1,953,000.
Second.
Thank you. We have Commissioner Githens with us. Thank you for your patience. Welcome, and I probably missed a bunch by not being at a meeting yesterday. Looks like people were busy.
We were, and it felt like that a lot of consensus was reached, and it felt really good in terms,
Good.
for me, in terms of the decisions that were made. And I was really pleased to see that what's on your agenda exactly matches what I recorded. So kudos to the.
That's always good.
Yes. And I don't know if there are specific questions, because we did discuss these in a public meeting last evening, but I'm happy to chat about what we've done. I would like to point out that the money for the septic systems and rural housing repair are additional funds above what was already appropriated for this.
Okay. Are there other questions then? Yes. Oh, sorry. Go right ahead.
You don't need that. I would just like to point out that line 37489, the People's Market, that money is for food boxes only. We had that conversation last night. For those of you who weren't able to listen, that is just for the food boxes, and you can see that comports with a lot of the other items on this list that, once again, just like we heard in Sophia Travis, food insecurity is a very real issue in our community. So it's good to see that we're addressing some of those. I'll also make a final point here that when People's Market was here presenting on their project, I don't know that we've ever had so much joy in this room. And it's so good to see that this portion of this project is finally coming to fruition here. So it's nice to see some of these coming across the finish line.
Great. Councilor McKim.
And actually, just because the last two items, their names aren't particularly obvious, can you just spend a minute describing both of those last two projects for the record?
Sure. The ARPA Smart Start money to the Community Foundation is to support programs that they're trying to do to expand childcare within our community. According to the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, there is only about half of the individuals seeking quality childcare in our community can find it. And so we need to expand what we have available. And that includes training for people. But the other big hole that childcare providers have is a substitution pool. And so that's one of the things that they've been working on through their Smart Start initiative. And when I talk with childcare providers, if you're small and you have two people and one of them gets sick, you have to close for the day, and that means parents are scrambling to find childcare. And so this allows, with that in place, places to stay open on a regular basis, and that helps the people in our community. But I think the expansion also is important. The last item actually is part of that also. This is for the Summit Hill Child Care Center, and this is focused, I believe it's going to be out on the west side of town, and it will focus primarily on infants and toddlers, and that's where our biggest gap is right now from what we hear for what's needed. This will be a 2-story facility, and the second story will provide 3 affordable apartments for families. And so this also goes to some of the other things in terms of what we're looking to support with ARPA money, I think. So they have this, the Summit Hill Child Care Center is a multi-million-dollar project. This fills what they need to do to complete the project. They've gotten other grants and other supports to make this happen. We are not the only funding entity for this.
Great. But Councilor Iverson.
For the first item there, our gun safes. I think I'm getting some questions on this, and I just want to ask you to clarify maybe. These aren't in-wall gun safes. These aren't heavy-duty rifle gun safes.
No, and it's actually more than just gun safes in terms of what is here. We've gotten written sort of application for all this, and this would cover gun locks for handguns. It would cover, these are gun safes that people put in their cars for, again, handguns, and it would also be for some educational materials to go out into the community. We've been having some discussions about different things. We'd like to be able to work with pediatricians' offices and other people to improve gun safety, especially for children in our community. Right now, guns are responsible for the highest number of deaths of kids ages 1 to 18. And it is an epidemic in and of itself. And so this is one of the ways to try to combat that in our community.
Thank you.
Councilor Decker.
So sheepish.
You're so
I'm
shy.
always sheepish. Sometimes I talk too much, so I'm sheepish. I am going to talk on this just for a second because there's not a thing on here I don't like, and I love this, and I love the work that we did yesterday in here. There was a good feeling as we did the work. I come into a lot of meetings that involve multiple bodies or county, city, town, and I'm always skeptical because sometimes things aren't easy to do, but all of this is a lot. And I said yesterday, and I'll repeat it again, there is something here for rural residents, urban residents. There's something here for hunger and housing and water cleanliness. There's something here for early childhood. And this, for most of us, will probably be the only time we will have an opportunity to spend this much money in this way, because we all know that funding, the way the state works, we are, and the law that governs our funding, we are literally choked on money until you get something like this, and then you don't know how to react to spend it. But we have worked together to try to figure it out. And I'm particularly overjoyed that these things will do something substantial somewhere, and some of these will go for a long, long time. And I think that's a big deal. And I also think that the collaboration we had in here yesterday was a model for how these things are supposed to go in a good community where we talk. Again, we're not going to be perfect, but we can figure these things out and reason it. And I appreciate the commissioners working with us on this to keep that moving along, and council moving back the other way. So again, thank you. I think this is great stuff. We need more of it, but this will do for now, or we'll try to make it do for now and keep on moving down the road.
And there were items that we discussed yesterday that we all said we weren't ready to make a decision on too. And so it's not that,
This is not the end of the road.
No, it's not. We received close to $29 million to be able to allocate through the ARPA funding. And so we've got more work to do for sure. But as you all have said, this felt so good yesterday, and it feels good tonight.
That's good to hear. Any other comments on our ARPA appropriations?
I would like our news media to pick up this important step that we're making with the commissioners and council, because this is for the public, and they should know the investments that we are making in various aspects that will affect so many lives here in the county. They need to know that.
Well, and the Pantry 279 money, we didn't point out, is specifically to support what they're doing at Thanksgiving this year.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just back of the napkining here. I mean, over $600,000 in food support.
Yeah.
Over $900,000 for childcare. I mean, not to mention, you know, the assistance for people who desperately need just to maintain their homes and their septics, and there's a lot here. It's good stuff. It's all stuff we've been talking about and working on, and you know, it's not the first time we've seen it, but it's nice to see it all right there coming together.
Well,
I'm
and
excited.
Both Councilmember McKim and I attend the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation's meetings, and they've been going through what they call their Economic Vitality Project, and childcare is part of what we need to be able to offer to attract additional businesses and high-quality businesses, high-quality jobs. So
good stuff.
I feel like we're doing our part.
Yeah. Any other comments? All right, well, is there any public comment on ARPA? Come on up.
Yes, yes, yes. A comment.
Ooh, you okay?
Yeah, it's just my shoe.
My name's Lee Grundhafer. I followed the ARPA allocation process, and I also noticed that in, was it September 3rd or something, there was resolution 23-26, the Monroe County ARPA subrecipient plan that was put in place. And my first question is, will that plan be put in place for these projects? And then second of all, I would like to say that just as was mentioned for the opioid settlement funds or the Sophie Travis funds, there seems to be no process for, like requests for proposals or, that kind of thing. So how do I get on the list? How do we get on the list? How do people get on the list? Because this list has been around for a while with no real additions put on it, and no real understanding of how to, really, get in the door for ARPA funds. And like you guys have said, there's a lot of money available, and I know that the county budget looks really good because you're making interest off that money. So, but we do need to, and I think there are people out in the community that can serve people disproportionately affected by COVID and the pandemic. And I think that there's still opportunities out there. These, of course, are really good opportunities, but I think we need to take a wider look and look at people who may be struggling in different areas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
May I indicate also that for several of these projects, we have these essentially grant applications with a narrative and a budget. So, yeah.
Is there any further public comment? Checking. There is a hand raised. Mr. Laverty? We can't hear you yet. It looks like you're unmuted.
How about now?
Oh, very quietly.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I just wanted to see, sorry, I didn't make the meeting yesterday. Second time for the ARPA specific meetings. I haven't been aware of that, but no big deal. Just got limited time right now. And I just want to say, I know that the airport has several projects in for ARPA funding. And I just wanted to say that I have received some communications from elected officials requesting some more specific information about the scope and intent of our projects. There's a utilities project and a stormwater and drainage project as well. And if anybody has any further information that they would like from us or some more understanding, I'm always happy to make myself available. We have a small group of some county staff coming to the airport to look at some of the issues next Tuesday at 11 o'clock. If that works for anybody, we'd love to have you out. If that doesn't, but you're still interested, just contact me and I'll do whatever it takes to just kind of help provide more information about these requests that we have. I believe they're significant and important for maintaining and preserving the infrastructure of Monroe County Airport for the community.
Thank you. I think that actually the public comment that was made does warrant just a little bit of discussion. I mean, just brief discussion for community organizations who may have something that they feel falls under the ARPA or opioid settlement funds. How would they gain access to any, the process? Because we spend a lot of time talking about it. We hear from a lot of people who are proactive, but it's a valid question in that, it hasn't been, I won't say it's not transparent because our discussions are all public, but they're formulaic and maybe not easy to navigate.
I have a thought, but it looked like Commissioner Githens was going to. This is maybe an answer that, or a comment that people aren't necessarily going to like, but I actually had a good discussion with somebody last night that just after the meeting who I ran into on the street, who kind of asked a similar question. And, this was also somebody who's involved in nonprofits and is used to applying for grants. And I think there's a tendency to think of the ARPA as a grant program.
Right.
In a grant program, you have an application form and you fill it out and you have criteria that it's rated against and a deadline and a decision point. And that's just not what it is. That's not a good model for what it is, or it's not an accurate model for what it is. It's legislation. I mean, it is ARPA, spending ARPA money is the process of creating legislation where you need essentially a majority of two different elected bodies to actively support and vote for moving a particular project forward. So I think given that it's not a grant program, it is legislation. Essentially the way that you get access is that you get an elected official who's part of that body to kind of sponsor and champion the project. Because I know that people don't necessarily like to hear that, but that's exactly what it is.
Well, but even with Amethyst House, they went to the commissioner's administrator, to Angie Purdy, to get that ball rolling. Yeah, I mean, so I think that there are multiple avenues that people can search out. People can just email commissioners at co.monroe.in.us, and it'll go to all three of us, for example, and they can contact the council. There are a lot of people.
Or speak at public comment.
They can, public comment. Both the council and the commissioners have public comment time for things that are not on our agenda. So there are a number of ways to bring things forward, I think.
Councilor Iverson.
In my observation from last night's meeting where we were discussing ARPA was there were multiple projects that either some elected officials didn't know about or county legal didn't know about, at least one of the projects. We were all kind of in the dark about some of the, where the projects were at a certain step, and some people had more knowledge than others. And I think that might be unavoidable. And so the more conversations we have, the more that we can get some of that stuff out into the open. And especially yesterday, we were able to make so much progress on probably some low-hanging fruit.
Well, and we have to be very careful about not making discussions before we're in public also. We don't want to violate open door laws.
Yes.
One thing that as I think about this process, this is about our second year of thinking about ARPA as ARPA came, essentially. And I can remember about 2 years ago, we started those kind of, what would be your wish list? And I remember back then I would hear from certain not-for-profits, certain folks would think, we'd meet with the commissioners, and this looked like a giant just cloud of stuff that we were trying to figure out and what should this go for. So we made those, the general broad guidelines. And I think over time that has sort of been a start, and then things have been added in, things have been refined, even as yesterday they were rapidly being refined, and things are still being refined. It is an imperfect process, but it is definitely one that has been so ongoing, and we've been talking about ARPA, and ARPA's been pretty notoriously out there in the media as a thing that happened. I mean, let's just be frank, if President Biden and Congress had not passed this, we'd be all sitting here right now, we'd be home in our living room.
We'd be home.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I'm grateful to them. I mean, that we need to say that more often than we do. Congress did this. I know they're having a rough day these days, but they did this at one time, and it's here doing its mission. So it is not very secretive. Now, here's the thing. We all have to get out there, and I'd say this to anyone in the public, and hopefully the media will continue to help us with this story. If there's something that we're missing, we did about $600,000 towards food here. If there's something else we're missing, not getting, we could do better. Those folks need to, we're going to need you to come forward a bit or tell us where to come find you so that we can get this. But administering these programs and getting out there among the people too, that's going to take a lot of hustle and work too. I mean, we look at some of these applicants that are just the food ones alone. We were talking about tackling septic yesterday. That will be a gargantuan effort that health department's going to have to guide us on, among other departments. So these are processes that we've been at for a long time, long time.
Thanks, I appreciate just having that discussion, getting some of that out there. Are there any other public comments on the ARPA appropriations?
Madam President, there is a chat, or there's a couple chats.
There's a couple chats. I think I saw
I'll leave to
them.
your discretion as to what to do with.
Well, my Zoom disappeared. Show all windows, no. I hit them.
They're also on the screen right here.
I can.
Oh, all right. Or I can read them.
Those are actually the ones I was responding to.
Okay.
When I asked my question. So, yeah. It's obviously getting late. I can't even remember. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. We're at number 16.
Council, I move to approve Resolution 2023-29, 2024 council meeting schedule.
Second.
Ms. Mosier has the schedule information up on the screen. I think we've all seen this before. We've talked about it before. I don't think there's anything different that we had since the last time we looked at it. It's just laid out. And of note is that our meetings will be starting at 5. This also has the PAC meetings and budget sessions on there, and hopefully everything will go super smoothly all next year. Are there any questions? Okay.
You've just cursed it just there.
I did. Any public comment on our schedule? All right. Do we have to have a roll call vote for this? Anyone know? That seems like an odd thing. I guess it's a resolution. Let's have a roll call vote.
Counselor Wiltz?
Yes.
Counselor Deckard?
Yes.
Counselor Crossley?
Yes.
Counselor Iverson?
Yes.
Counselor McKim?
Yes.
Counselor Munson?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We are on to minutes.
Council, I move to approve the County Council summary minutes of August 8, 2023, regular session, and August 22nd, 2023, work session as presented.
Second.
Any changes or edits or corrections or? All right, seeing none, any public comment on our minutes? Okay. Could I have a voice vote? Woo! All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Ayes have it unanimously. Yes, Ms. Turner King.
I just have a clarification real quick on looking at the resolution regarding the council meeting schedule. It still has the budget hearing adoption starting at 5:30. Is the intent for the budget hearing to start at 5:30, or do you want that time moved to 5 o'clock with the other council start times?
Is 5 okay?
I think 5's okay. I move to amend that resolution on the calendar to show all budget references to start at 5 p.m.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, can I do that? No. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, consider it amended. Thank you. Are we on council comments? Let's have council comments. Does anybody have any more comments? You're about to comment your way right out of here. All right.
Please no, please.
All right, in that case, this meeting is adjourned.
Okay.